those ARPA fees. We still support those fees. We have all that comes back in, so we're out of that money. Now we did, Miss Jessica, I asked her to go through, and she went through and found some smaller stuff, and I think it's $48,000 total. And that had been left over from some of the stuff, and she added it to it. So she's done that to reflect it in here, which puts us down just shy of $3 million. And that deal with the hospital, it has to be 10% of the gross rate before we can access that, and that's what access to two-thirds first. Call a budget meeting to order. Ask Miss Jessie to call the roll. See if we got a quorum.
Chairman Scarlett?
Here.
Commissioner Norton? Here. Commissioner Patterson? Is Joe sitting in for him? No.
I didn't see him out there.
Commissioner Snodgrass?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Bird was supposed to be here, and he's got a family emergency.
Commissioner Solomon?
Here.
Commissioner Douglas?
Here.
Commissioner Coleman?
Here.
Commissioner Walker? Is anyone sitting in for Commissioner Walker?
Here somewhere. Walker.
I was understood that he was on his way.
Reed and Walker here somewhere.
And Commissioner Reed? Looks like we have
7.
I only have 6. I don't see Reed or Walker.
Okay. 4 absent, 6 present. We do have a quorum. Is there any citizens that wish to speak? I did not get any things. Seeing none, we're going to proceed. You have before you approval of the minutes, special call meeting May 13th, 2024.
So moved.
Mr. Solomon, Ms. Norton. Motion's made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. This is our third meeting to say the budgets. We have passed everything but 101. Based on what Ms. Jessie has done, she has adjusted some of it. We are now, and she'll give you the figure, we are now just south of $3 million.
It's been, some things have been adjusted. I apologize. The reserve, I wasn't counting in one of the pending amendments from last week, so we are right at 3 million now.
Right at $3 million.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to do tonight. Our other budgets are done. School, roads, sanitation, post-sanitation budgets, drug fund, law library, all of that are already passed. And so we've got, and they balance, they do not require any other additional funds. Is that correct, Ms. Jessie?
That's correct.
All right. Any other comments you have, Ms. Jessie?
I do. Okay, I passed out an item that is labeled total compensation statement. We'll see that we've marked Mr. Walker here now.
Minutes reflect Mr. Walker is present.
It looks like this, total compensation statement. This is an item that we will be able to provide all the county in July. Once we have their salaries, we'll be able to upload with their salaries, their insurance, and other items as you see on the list that will show the employer contribution, which is Jefferson County government, and it'll show what the employee is contributing if they pay a portion of their insurance, such as they choose to carry dental or vision or spouse or child family coverage. I just wanted to give you an update in case you have any questions on this. This letter will go out in July. I think this is an excellent way to show how much the county does pay towards the employee's insurance and all the other. And it does prove that we are absorbing those each year. In the making, we have until tomorrow to change it. So I need those ideas quickly. But this is how it will be presented at the very bottom. It will show your total compensation, which will show the employee's salary. It'll show what the employer, which is Jefferson County, is contributing on all those benefits. So it'll have the whole compensation package at the very bottom. No, I'm sorry, he wasn't provided this beforehand. There's a copy right beside of you if you need that. Okay.
So this represents a base salary of $25,875.20. Is that an actual pay in our current pay structure?
This is an example
Okay.
that they sent us. Looks like a test employee that they run.
Just a quick math, that comes out to $12.44 an hour.
This isn't from our county.
Okay.
This is an example from our My Benefits channel that we use, where the employees can log in and see their paid time off and their paycheck stubs and their W-2s. This is just purely, strictly an example. That's why there's items that are marked through. This vacation cash-in option is marked through. We don't have that option. Holiday, it's showing 13 a year. We can't show the cash amount for a holiday because you don't have a choice to get paid in lieu of taking a holiday. I do have one other item that I've passed out this evening. It's a Board of Education Maintenance of Effort update. We did receive a letter, and this is just a TISA estimate. We just recently received it, and it has changed it from what I sent out in the package prior. It does show that our required local match is 13.6 million. And the difference to required maintenance of effort is at the very bottom before, in the proposed 24-25 column, $243,747. That is currently the amount that we are budgeting above and beyond. However, as you can see, we receive updates that tell us if our local match increases or decreases. This last update, it increased it. We will receive another one in May, hopefully soon, and in June. So this number moves constantly. I apologize, we're not able to get it on the board, but if you all do have this in front of you, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I did have a question. I struggle a little bit with the maintenance of effort and trying to decipher which, what's what here. On the maintenance of effort, is my understanding, once we've provided that salary to someone, we can't ever take it away. We can't go back down. We have to stay at that point.
So there's different maintenance of efforts.
Okay.
That is true for the libraries. It's true for the sheriff's department. It's also true for the elections. However, the elections changes if it's an election year, a presidential election, or non-presidential election. So once we allot a certain amount towards salaries, we cannot decrease that.
Okay.
Now, for the schools, the maintenance of effort's a little different. It's based off of the local revenue. This does list all of our local anticipated revenues that the School General Fund 141 does receive. So we cannot reduce that amount. And that's the maintenance of effort on the Board of Education side. So it is a little different for different departments on the county side compared to the Board of Education maintenance of effort.
Okay.
Ms. Jessie, speak to the sales tax issue and how it feeds into the maintenance of effort and the county and the increases and
Okay.
having to give half and.
We follow the local sales tax. I say we, I guess I do. I follow it and I share it each month. And as it has consistently stayed the same, through COVID, it was volatile. It was all over the place. But now it has consistently stayed the same, where I'm comfortable to increasing the local option sales tax 2.5%. So that's 2.5% on each fund that receives a portion of local option sales tax. So if I increase it on the county side, which General Fund 101 receives it on the county side, I have to increase it on the school side, which is their General 141. So if I increase 2.5% on the county to increase the revenue, I have to increase it, and that does increase their maintenance of effort. You can see the variance column, it increased it $193,037 on the Board of Education side. You'll also see that increase reflected on the General Fund 101 side as well.
Okay. Makes sense now. Thank you.
John L. So back to the maintenance of effort question. So, for example, on the election commission, last year they had a budget of $0 for staff development. This year they put in $9,000. So does that mean we got to keep $9,000 in there every year?
Maintenance of effort for salaries is only the 100s and the 200s. You'll see, we call it below the line is below that. That's non-payroll. So 100s and 200s, they're not in front of me. I believe some of them are paid out of 189, other salaries and wages. 200 start Social Security, Medicare, unemployment. Mainly it's down through 299. So I don't have that right in front of me, but so it's just their salary and associated. So when we do a bonus, for example, that does not increase their maintenance of effort. A bonus is a one-time payment, and the bonus plus their associated payroll cost does not increase it. We check this maintenance of effort before we present the budget on each department that's required.
The only other, I think the only other department is the road department, and it's a rolling 5-year average. on
Yes,
it.
the highway, and that's on the, also, it's the highway, thank you. Fund 131 is a 5-year average on local revenues. So sometimes we may budget, but we may bring in more than we budgeted, and we have to do a test, and you'll see me present a budget amendment to amend in additional revenue, and you'll normally see that in October, because that maintenance of effort test, we can't do it until we have our fiscal year closed the prior year, because we have to know our revenues to calculate that 5-year average.
Any other questions for Ms. Jessie? All right, of budgets. What's the pleasure of the committee?
I want to make a recommendation that we share with the full body of commission that that we would like to use $2 to $3 million of the hospital fund, and then that, from what I see, will be replenished at 46,000 next year?
Sorry. Yes, that's what we bring in for the lease payments for the hospital each year.
Okay. I was talking to John Neal at the beginning, and we can't make a motion to do it. We can't do it ourselves, but we can recommend that county commission do it.
Correct. And it requires a 2/3 vote.
But
to
by
do
what I
that.
read it, and if anybody wants a copy, I brought it. If anybody needs a copy of the signed resolution that was made with.
I've got some here if you want it. All right, Ms. Janet makes a motion. Have you got, you're making a motion to,
Recommend to the full commission that we use
you got to
I'm
have a
gonna-
number.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say Jesse. I'm gonna say 2 million of the hospital fund. And I know there's 2 pockets of that, so we have to be careful about which one we use or that we ask for.
2 pockets.
That's the way I read it. Yes. So out of the other purposes reserved is what we would have to do.
Correct.
So we can't take it out of capital, I would assume. That's not, debt is not capital. So it'd have to be the other. I just want to take care of the debt. I'm not trying to build anything else. Not yet. Right, for debt.
Now, whoa, it's not going to be used for debt.
It's a balance for the budget,
It's
for the
gonna be
budget,
used-
to
You're talking about
balance
using
the
it for the
budget.
budget. Now, this is not debt, that's a separate issue.
Gotcha, just misspoke. Balance the budget.
All right. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Just for the record, I think this is a bad idea. The reason that thing was put a fence around is in the event of the hospital, somebody not being there, this was a bridge that we could keep operating. And we put it in there to where once it got to 10%, we could use the
lease payment for these things. But for myself, I think this is a bad idea. And I think it's got a lot of holes, and once you get addicted to it, there's a problem. Any other discussion?
I got a question for, what's the total amount of monies in that hospital lease?
I answered that earlier today to someone. I believe it's 10.4 million. Mr. Snodgrass it was Mr. Reed that called. I apologize. I think it's 10 million. I don't want to misspeak. If I have a balance sheet right here with me, I can look real fast. Hang on.
It's around 10 million.
Yes, around 10.
Is there a length of time that monies would have to be paid back to that if it is approved?
I was not here when the resolution was written. I'm not 100% sure that is in the resolution.
I don't think it gives a time
But
limit either.
I don't think that there is a time limit on that.
Do y'all mind if for grins and giggles, I just read it out loud? School teacher and helper.
I think it's section 4 that you want.
Yeah, I'll go through the wherefores and whereas. Section 1, that there is hereby established a special revenue fund number 128. A hospital lease proceeds shall be paid into this reserve, shall be reserved and managed as further described herein. Section 2, that all the hospital lease proceeds shall be designated, committed for other purposes reserved, until the balance of the reserve reaches 10% of the entire or gross budget for the county.
For the purpose of this resolution, the budget for the county shall include, but not limited to, county general, courthouse and jail maintenance, law library, drug control, debt service, general capital projects, school capital projects, sanitation, landfill, highway, general purpose schools, school federal purposes, and student nutrition. Proceeds in the committed for other purposes may only be used for the following: A, to supplement the annual budget, reducing the need to raise property tax or cut services during an economic downturn when revenues are declining. To satisfy the landfill fund 207 closure, post-closure liability deficit. As of June 30, 2019, the landfill has $3,740,510 unrestricted net position. C, to provide relief caused by a natural disaster event such as a flood, tornado, earthquake, storm, or other national, local, and statewide emergency. D, for the temporary operation of the hospital, which is the subject of the current lease between the county, Jefferson City, and Jefferson County HMA, LLC, hereinafter referred to as the hospital, in the event the current tenant does not renew lease agreement. Section 4, the committed for other purposes reserve requirement in Section 2 above shall be adjusted to reflect the latest approved budget, and all new hospital lease revenue received will be utilized to replenish this reserve until it reaches 10% of the entire county budget. Section 5, in the event that the board votes to utilize the committed for other purpose reserve pursuant to the terms of this resolution, all new hospital lease proceeds received will be utilized to replenish the committed reserve until it again reaches 10% of the entire county budget. Section 6, all hospital lease revenues in excess of 10% established in Section 2 will be placed in a committed for capital outlay reserve to be utilized for capital or infrastructure. Section 7, changes to this resolution 2020-19 requires a 2/3 superior majority vote of the board on 2 consecutive meetings. Section 8, utilization of the committed to other purpose reserve requires a 2/3 super majority vote of the board. And Section 9, utilization of the committed for capital outlay reserve requires a half simple majority vote of the board.
So this has to be voted on.
So here, and I told Mr. Ronnie wrong, I read that wrong. I thought it was one meeting. If that is the thing, Herein lies the problem. Same thing with wheel tax. We cannot build a budget on something we cannot access. And if it takes 2 meetings, you are after July 1.
Unless we have a special called meeting.
Can you do special called? I know most of my resolutions, such as will tax, it has to be a regularly scheduled meeting.
I believe
just want-
so.
I just wanted to throw that out there if,
I
because
don't-
June
I don't know the
24th
answer.
is the scheduled meeting.
My understanding is we can, so I wish the attorney was here tonight.
It doesn't specify the resolution.
Okay.
Okay.
And we
So
have
if you had-
846,000 coming in to replace it this year. We've got to do something until we can figure this out, or go in here and just cut the heck out of it from one end to the other. And I'm looking for ideas.
So if it does not specify it, then can have it.
I just read the resolution out loud for the hospital reserve. My understanding is that we can't vote to use it tonight, but we can make a recommendation to the county commission that we do this, and it has to have 2 votes, and we'll have to have a special call meeting in there to make this second vote happen. And if we use $2 million out of this fund, that then gets replenished, and this coming year, we've got 846 coming in. John Neal's concern was that we don't want to build a budget on something that we shouldn't be going back to grab out of again. So I'm going to continue to recommend that we use it until we can figure out something better to do.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Where does it say in the resolution that it takes 2 votes?
It's in there.
Section 7,
Yeah.
2 consecutive meetings.
And so I'll just we'll ask for a special call meeting.
Let me ask you something else. What is the requirements on our advertising, hearing, all of that? Because I know that there's a time, because the meeting that we go to can't be that one.
I have to
gotta-
advertise June 8th, the
Okay,
proposal
okay.
for them at that time. And if I can, I would just err on the side of caution with this. These expenditures that have increased this budget are reoccurring. So if we use $2 million from the hospital fund now to budget it, it'll still leave $1 million, but we'll be sitting in this same seat next year.
Mr. Reed?
Why would we be sitting next year?
Because our expenditures more than likely will not decrease $2 million next year.
Was it explained, and I apologize to the citizens first for being late, and to the committee.
Yeah.
Did you discuss what it's going to be used for? How much?
2 million.
2 million. I would like the citizens to understand this. If we need 2 meetings to vote, it says in section 3A, to supplement the annual budget, reducing the need to raise property tax rates or cut services during an economic downturn when revenues are declining. My question to myself and my answer to myself, we're in that situation right now. We're $3 million in the hole, and I do not understand why, as a committee or as a commission, we can't get our act together and push forward on this money that we have sitting there, $10.2 million and 846,500 and something coming in this fiscal year. and next fiscal year, the same amount's gonna come in. I think there's ways we could look and put before the board what we could do to balance this budget. I wish I had been able to get some answers quickly, but I think we need to really consider this. I don't think this is gonna hurt the county. That's what we got the money for, isn't it? That's the way I read this resolution.
It was the
I'm
first thing
open
they
to
mentioned it was for.
suggestions.
It was a bad idea. They shouldn't have mentioned it on number one.
Well, if you do the 2 million, you cannot touch it next year. It has to be replenished before you can touch it again. And as Ms. Jessie said, the 2 million will still be there next year. We've not addressed the problem, we've just kicked it down the road. And Jefferson City, they used theirs to build a new city center. They don't have any money from the hospital. It's all committed from what I understand. They are spending as they come in. But like I say, if you do this is a one-trick pony. That 2 million has to be replaced before you can do it again.
Well, I
Even
think
with
we
a
need to
two-thirds
look at-
majority.
Yeah, we'll need to look at increasing fines and fees and anywhere that we can get what we can to make it up, or we're gonna have to find somewhere to cut. And I don't know that anybody out here is volunteering to cut their department. So I'm at a loss.
Any other discussion?
How much money are we talking about with the addition to the bus garage being moved to the county garage? How much?
There
is that?
is five, can you speak into the microphone, Mr. Ronnie? Please, thank you.
All right. Question is, how much money's involved with the addition at the county garage to provide for the buses?
There's a little over 500,000, that is in capital that we approve for that budget to,
Half of that is from reserves that we set aside this fiscal year to a little shy of $280,000. So we already have $280,000 set aside this fiscal year. And that's equivalent to 2 property tax pennies, the value of 2 pennies. And for next year, they were on the schedule. We've scheduled out capital projects to receive, and this is the 3rd year. So they were to receive this. This has just been in the plans for 3 years. That's why it's plugged into the budget.
So my question would be, is there actual need for it right now? Is there anybody here can answer that?
Mr. Large? Come up here to the microphone, please, if you would.
Our fleet, not only for the county roads, as far as ambulances, our fleet for the school system is going to change. We're going to take in new things for different vehicles. And so, yes, there is a need for it. But the county's expanding, you know.
So what's the problems with the old county garage that we've used for 30 years?
The one that I'm at now, that I've only been
The
at,
old county bus garage.
it's used as storage. You've not got enough room. I can take 3 buses over and put them in there. I can't work on one of them. We're adding this facility, we're adding on to what we've got now. We can put 3 in and work on 3. If you pull 3 in over our side by side, you cannot work on all 3 of them. If you've got to do brakes all the way around it, you've got to do one, and then you have to switch around and do another. You're up against a wall, you have a safety zone that you have to walk through that's right there beside it that has to be accessed. So right now, in one bay, we have more room than what's in those 3 combined areas over there. Because if it was laid out different, hey, we could do everything over yonder. But if you want to do everything over there, you've got to tear out all those office spaces and redo, so you're going to spend the same amount of money.
Can we not use both facilities?
I do. I've got $50,000 worth of tires stored over there right now, and that takes up half of it.
What else is stored there?
Whatever use the school system. They do shipping and receiving out of that same facility, so anything that comes in for shipping for all the schools comes to right there, am I right, Dr. Arnold? So,
That's what I thought was there.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
I'm
I
sorry.
think just a refresher from several meetings ago, there is zero money allocated to put equipment in this facility. This money is just to build the facility. We had made mention that this, since it's for the school buses, that the school might get engaged in supplying the necessary equipment. So we can build it, but it's going to sit empty, is that correct?
once it's built, it'll be utilized. The day that the job is done, those guys will go to work in it.
Okay.
So it'll have lifts and everything that you need?
Yes, it'll have everything we need to go to work in it. The day it is done, when they hand us the keys, we sign the paperwork, whatever, after it's bidded out, we will be working in it.
Okay, so that confuses me a little because we thought the school, we'd mentioned the school buying that equipment. since
That
it's-
would be extra equipment to what they have right now. We have lifts to maintain. If they want new lifts, then yes, they will.
Okay.
The school system buys that.
Gotcha.
But no, like, from day one, it will be utilized.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on Ms. Janet's motion? Any other questions? Mr. Reed?
Where does it say? I know it says that we replenish like we do every year. We're putting, as of this year, we're putting 846,000, I think it's 500 and few dollars. Where does it say, other than that we must take that money and put it back into committed for other purposes reserve?
Section 5.
I read it
Hospital
in section
proceeds will
5,
be
but I
utilized
think-
to replenish the committed reserve until it again reaches 10%.
Of the entire county budget.
Yes.
And you can still use the money in that, because we may never reach the 10%. There's a possibility of that.
I'm just telling you what the resolution
And I
says.
think you're reading it the wrong way. I think we have the obligation to the citizens of this county. Let's get our lawyer in here and talk to the lawyer about this resolution, because I'm not satisfied with this. I know that people are talking about the property taxes being raised. We're talking about 21 to 26 cents. I think we should look at everything. I think we need to go back and look at the school budget. I think if we're gonna do right to our citizens, we need to go back and look at everything and find what we can cut, because there's a lot of other contracted services. There's a lot of other things that's put throughout the budget. I looked at the travel. The travel is one it looked like the department heads and elected officials have done a good job with. But when I go back and look at the school budget, I have questions on the maintenance of effort, because we are responsible for an additional maintenance of effort. And I have questions about that because we're losing students out of our school system, which is going to affect the amount of money that we get from TISA. So there's a lot of stuff that we need to slow the train down. If it requires us meeting every day, then we should do that. That's my opinion, and only my opinion. I just think we throw this away too quick. We've got this money for an emergency, and I see an emergency. Our citizens say that they're in an economic downturn. I know I am with inflation. So we owe it to them. Let's don't make our job easy. Let's look and see why we can't use this. Let's go to full commission and say we want to use this. That's what we got it for. Again, that's my belief, my principle, my understanding of this resolution. We use too many smoke and mirrors and not transparent like we should be. Thank you.
Mr. Reed, Ms. Jessie spoke to the maintenance of effort earlier. When you weren't here, you might want to get her to readdress that to you. But as far as smoke and mirrors, this was put together by a prior commission, and there's nothing that's not transparent. It's been on the books for many years.
It's been on the books since I've been on commission. So I've been on commission 6 years. I fully understand it. And there's 21 of us commissioners. It takes 14. And I think for once, we need to really listen to the concern of our citizens instead of sometimes just brushing them off, and think about the best way to make this solved, because we got employees that don't make a decent living. We got elderly people, and I know there's breaks for taxes. I can understand that, and we're probably gonna have to raise the tax. But we're sitting on $10 million there, $14 million in the debt service fund, and people are saying, don't raise taxes, we don't have the money. I mean, if you can prove to me that that's not so, then by all means do. But I do have a question on the maintenance of effort for the schools.
We will, yes.
Can you tell me real quick what the, it would have to be this past year, because we're just now voting on, working on this year's budget. The entire county budget last year for 2023 or coming into 2024, yeah.
Just to remind everybody, the debt service, the 14 million that Commissioner Reed's talking about, cannot be accessed for anything but debt. It cannot be used for anything but debt. It has to be used to make payments. It cannot be used for operational at all.
So if we're in debt to the hospital fund, can we put it there?
No, we can't.
Hey, I'm a creative thinker.
I admire your effort. Well, it's gonna be a long day for $2 million. All right, just so everybody knows, even if we do this, we will still face $2 million deficit next year, because these are reoccurring expenses.
It's going to take a little longer than a few minutes. I wish I'd had that question earlier. I apologize if I'd been prepared on last year's. I'll be happy to add that up and send it to you in an email, but as of right now, I have it, but it is not added up at all, so.
I
Do
thought
you
that
need
was
that
something we would
before we
have
vote?
somewhere. Well, I was just looking, if we're looking at 10% of the budget, the entire county budget, what is the entire county budget? What is 10% of the entire county budget?
Well, the school systems,
The entire county budget last year, someone asked this, so the amended budget for all of the schools in county was close to 130 million.
so with that, it'd take 13.
And we're sitting at 10, and we're only gonna take out 2, and 846 is going right back in. It won't take long to get back there.
Well, it'll have to get to 10% before that starts rolling out. Before a regular access of it, it has to get to 10%. All right, any more questions?
When's our next budget meeting?
We don't have one scheduled.
June
Well,
June
24th.
24th.
When?
June 24th.
We need to have one earlier, because I want an answer from our attorney over this resolution.
Should we vote first to see?
Yeah,
I don't mind reaching out to him, but I didn't know if that's a question to me or,
That's a question for later.
okay.
Is there any other discussion on Ms. Janet's motion? If not, call the roll, Ms. Jessie.
Chairman Scarlett?
No.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Snodgrass?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Sorry,
It's not here.
not here. Commissioner Solomon?
No.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
5-2.
Motion passes. What else is the pleasure of the committee?
6 to 2, I apologize.
6 to 2.
Apparently I can't count.
That's scary.
I thought, okay. Mr. Solomon, will you take the chair? Based on what we're doing, and I'm gonna blame part of this on Terry, Mr. Ronnie. Mr. Terry brought up some stuff last time and was looking at different things, but, I'd like to make a motion. We've already paid for the ambulances that are coming in this time. So I'm gonna move that we do away with those out of the budget. That's a one deal thing. We've already paid for them out of the, so they could order them. So Mr. Brad could get them as a 18-month lag time. The sheriff found $100,000 on the drug fund, or money he got in for that. And so we're down to $200,000 on his cars. I'd like to move to put them in capital. And then I'd like to remove all of the increases from the fire departments, nonprofits, all of that, and go back to what they had on base amounts. So remove all of the increases, short 300,000. And that's gonna end up, and get a second.
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay.
Okay, so if you take the fire departments back to where they were previously without the additional monies that were given later, that would still give them a 30%.
No.
It
would
takes the
take them back.
30% increase away.
Takes the 30% of increase away. Takes all the other stuff, the increases. If you look at the nonprofits, anything that's in the column of increases goes away.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So,
Janet?
Anytime that we group everything together like that and say, let's just cut everybody, I can't do it. I need to look at things on an individual basis and go that way. So I just can't do that bulking it together thing.
You done?
Go ahead.
you amending the motion to take them one by one?
Yeah, I would prefer to do it that way if that's what we're gonna do, is take them
You
one
want-
by one instead of in a group.
You make an amendment to the motion?
Yes, yes.
I have an amendment to the motion. I hear a second. Second by Snodgrass. Any discussion on the amendment? I hear none.
I'm gonna get to ask questions about the original.
After you vote on the amendment.
All right, so we can't ask about the ambulances individually right now.
No, you gotta ask, you gotta stay with the amendment.
All in favor of the amendment, say yes.
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 All opposed?
No.
No. All right, show of hands. If you're in favor of the amendment, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3. 3 yeses, and if you're opposed, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Amendment fails. 5 to 3.
Back to the original motion now.
Explain on the ambulances a little further. So we've already got.
If you all remember, Mr. Brad came and he said, and Miss Jessie said that there's a 18 to 24 month lag time. And you all passed a budget amendment for $500,000 back several months, or when was that? January, okay. Back in January, we paid, and Mr. Brad may want to come up here if there's some question about that. With those ambulances, those were for next year. Is that correct, Mr. Brad? And the reason we did that is so that he could go ahead and file the purchase and get his name in the hat ahead of time. So we've basically already paid for those ambulances. So rather than rebudget them, we can let that one float and come back in next
Skip
year.
a year. So they'll be skipping a year, right?
No, they won't be skipping. These ambulances that Mr. Brad has ordered are the ambulances he is wanting for this next year. Is that correct?
That's correct. We'll receive 4 ambulances basically in this, sometime in this next budget year, hopefully in this next budget year. So that was a pre-approved allocation so that we can place the order. Because like, I can't do a purchase order unless there's money sitting there for that.
So the 3 that are in here
So
are already paid for,
those
already
that's
ordered?
actually 2.
2, okay.
The reason that money was put in the budget is so that at the end of the next budget year, we can approach that same subject again. If you take it away, we're just gonna have to have that discussion later of how we order. If there's gonna be a delay in ambulances for, let me get my years right, because we're doing 24, 25.
Correct.
That's what y'all are discussing, so for 25, 26, then we're gonna have to kind of look at how we approach that order for 25, 26.
Okay, but you would be all right right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get 4 ambulances this year. I mean, and so, here's the thing.
Thank you.
Y'all have to decide how to spend the money. Y'all pay me to figure out how to fix it if it gets messed up, right? So,
And if you've got an issue, you're gonna come to us and say,
I'm gonna come to you and say, here's the problem, you graciously listened to me when I come to you and said, hey, we need to pre-order these to get in the order bank and use full money from fund balance in order to make that order. And that's the way we work. I've been doing this, I've been the director for 19 years, so it's your job to allocate the money, it's my job to figure out how to make it work. So, y'all do what you have to do, and we'll figure it out. And just know that, you know, when we have a need, I'm gonna come back to you with that need, and we'll figure out how quickly we can do it where we can, so.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
How much money did that involve on the ambulances?
500,000.
500,000.
Hey, John Hill, is this gonna be for fire departments and other nonprofits also?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just not only fire departments?
No,
It's
fire
gonna be all
departments and other
nonprofits.
fire departments and other nonprofits, any increases that's coming off that page
Okay,
are taken away.
okay.
So what is the total reduction for the fire departments?
Well, it's not, it's fire departments, rescue squad, anything else that are nonprofits.
270,000.
I'm asking for the fire departments.
Fire department's only $226,727.
Reduction,
Reduction,
$300,000 reduction,
$226,000.
$226,000.
That's for the fire departments
$727.
alone. 270,
$270,227 total. We've already removed the chamber at 32,000.
Yeah, so I'm just.
500.
fire departments. So how do you operate?
they're gonna get their base pay. And if they were to come to us after the thing's going, and they were to come to us and said, hey, we can't make it, we got to have that money. This is where Mr. Terry's accounting thing comes in, Mr. Ronnie. If they were to come to us and say that, we would certainly take that under consideration, and we have every right to make that happen for them at a later date.
I don't understand why we can't do it now if we can do it later.
Because if we do it now, you don't get to take a tax credit. It does not reduce your tax bill $270-some thousand, which is 2 pennies.
But it pushes it to next year, right? Kind of what you were talking about earlier. It doesn't deal with the issue now, it just pushes it to next year. And then these guys gotta scrap for everything.
Not necessarily. We can grant the request that they have, and certainly help them out later on if that's what they are in dire need of. But come next year, based on if there's growth or whatever, it may or may not be able to absorb that, but it helps out this year.
Just honestly, that doesn't make logical sense to me. When I can look at this budget and I see all kinds of travel, probably not mandated law travel budgets, and I'm all about staff development, but if it's not mandated by law, we shouldn't keep that in here and short our fire departments. And that's what when I was leading to a few weeks ago, when we had a meeting, really go back and look at this and see in each department what is absolutely necessary to get by. If travel's not mandated by the federal government or the state government, don't put it in here. Skip the staff development this year if you can, if it's not mandated. What was the other one? Office furniture. I mean, those are things that can all be removed by the department heads. If you go back and really take a look and scrub and what can I do? What can I do? What's necessary? And then I go back and we've got, I'm not asking you for a rollover number, but right now, what is chance to look at everything? $3 million? Don't ballpark, plus or minus.
I'm sorry, unless I look up the email. Hang on, I've got what I sent you.
John Neal, you got a ballpark?
I wouldn't even attempt that right now.
I don't have it, I apologize.
All right. What was it last year, a rollover?
245,000.
Okay. So when you look at these budgets, I feel, and I'm guilty of this in my own work life too, I'll put a lot of money in here with good intentions to get things done. And sometimes in reality, I don't have the resources to get it done, so that money just sits there, but all of us, I say all of us, with the hospital, sitting there idle, not putting to work for. So I guess that's where I'm struggling with, from an ethics standpoint, or I'm not saying ethics, but just for a feel-good inside of, let's keep that same tax rate, get all that money, but we don't end up putting it to work.
And there's not anything that says that we can't redo that resolution either, or put in a new resolution. Anything that the county commission can do, it can undo.
Anybody else got any?
Yeah, so my final comment. So they're still getting new ambulances. The 25, 26 is unclear yet for that. Sheriff still gets new cars. The fire department takes a big hit.
As I said, it is our discretion. If they come to us, just like Mr. Brady came to us and asked us, hey, this is what I need. So once we get in the budget year, if fire departments was to come to us and say, hey, this is what we need, there's nothing that prevents us from doing that.
Where's the money gonna come from?
Fund balance.
Are you closing?
I got, one close, and if Mr. Ronnie will accept this, I'd like to add that with the sheriff's car, moving them to capital, I would request that we do have an interfund loan in case the cars are in the first half of the year and the cash flow is not there for the capital from the property tax.
Can we change that to a trans tax revenue anticipation note?
What Ms. J said,
Thank
Is
you.
that included in your motion?
that will be included in my
Okay.
motion.
Anybody
Please.
else? You need a roll call vote?
I need some clarification. So this is to do away with all nonprofit, including fire departments, and that's what we're voting on now?
No, I'm doing away with all the increases in the nonprofits, not doing away with all nonprofits. That what they were doing.
Jesse, nonprofits,
What you need to know?
the page that nonprofits were on, I want to look at exactly
27.
what was being taken off.
So there's
Crazy
no
to vote on it, not
reduction
look at
in the animal care facility.
No reduction on anything they got last as a base.
So if you look at the variance, that is what I believe the motion is on, the total of
Correct.
270,000.
So we have the rescue squad, The fire department's 226, 727, the rescue squad 29,000, 6,000.
Any increases on anything in the nonprofits budget?
Yeah. That means Safe Harbor wouldn't get anything at all.
If that is any increases, if they're under that,
Safe Harbor Child Advocacy Center is where it's in Sevierville, but it serves all the counties around it. And any time that something horrendous happens to a child, you take your child there, and they do forensic interviews and provide the resources needed by the families to then help that child through that horrific event that's happened. And this county has never given anything to it.
We use them too.
And we have to use them. We're required.
and as I would say before, this does not preclude anything if a request is made from the commission to do that. Confirm with the comptroller.
Anybody else? Jesse Colero.
Chairman Scarlett,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
No.
Commissioner Snodgrass,
No.
Commissioner Solomon,
I abstain with Kyle.
Commissioner Douglas,
No.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
No.
3 yeses. Someone double check. I have 3 yeses, 4 noes, and 1 abstain with cause.
Motion fails.
I don't need that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can have that for the next, not maybe, I can have that for the next meeting.
I think something would be really nice that these budgets that we get from all these different department heads, if we had some kind of an idea where it was spent, instead of individually. I don't know, I heard some people say they've had to go out and ask and calling department heads and going to see them and trying to find out where this money's going, so I can, in my mind, decide, you know, is this really realistic, if it's needs to be spent, or if it's something they can do without. It's just really hard to take all this, and it's not my job. I wouldn't have Jesse's job, y'all would all be in trouble. But try to wrap our minds around it and then give a logical vote. We're trying to learn as much as we can as we go, and I don't feel like I'm educated enough to, but I'm darn trying. I think Mr. Carmichael made a statement that he would have a class for us where we'd learn about the budget, and then we were told after the budget was passed, we'd get that class. I'd really like to know, I really would like to know.
I can speak on behalf of the finance departments if you have any specific questions on ours. I'm here.
Yeah, that'd be good, because
Absolutely.
you got a $14,000 increase in staff development.
We do. Hang on, I can speak on behalf of that. I'm ready for that question.
Let me get Mr. Brad right quick.
I can save you a little bit of time. You won't have to vote on it. If I remove $500,000 from my budget, is that correct?
If that's what you want.
That's the consensus that I hear up here, so I can save you a little bit of time. We just wait and put that $500,000 that fixes that. You can mark that down.
Can you operate, without that?
That's for the ambulance.
For the ambulances, okay.
So we,
All right.
I mean, I think everybody's on the same page. We'll just move that.
Yeah.
We'll just aggressively.
And I really appreciate you.
Just write that down, John, you know that doesn't happen very often.
No. I was just gonna check, see if Steve was writing it down over there, and Chrissy was too. Mr. Reed.
I would like to take a look at our own county commission section. Can you answer questions on that, Jesse?
Let's take the first question that Mr. Snodgrass has, and then we'll get to yours.
Thank you.
Okay, so it shows a $14,000 increase.
Can you tell
However-
what page on so we can be looking at the same time? Sorry.
Page 7.
Page 7.
Thank you.
Right, kind of the lower third of the page.
Right.
Thank you, thank you.
So-
Fourth line from the bottom.
So within our department, some of our positions are required to have certain degrees and certain education. We are required to have certain certificates which require continuing education. Within our department, the schools reimburses all but 4.5 employees that the county pays for. We have a total of 14 employees. The schools reimburses that. They also reimburse any type of required furthering education for all school employees in our department. So in our department, we have processing equipment that is to replace 3 computers for this fiscal year. They are on a 5-year cycle, which is not soon enough, but we are constantly running payroll, processing checks to pay the county and the school bills. So out of 14 computers, I've plugged in to replace 3 of those. I've plugged in reserves that I saved last fiscal year when I had a person that was going to be retiring. I was hoping to bring someone on sooner, couldn't, so we went ahead and used those reserves to replace that. The staff development, we were able to offset. We have moved funds around, so technically it has not increased $14,605, which it appears that it has. Because if you remove the travel amount, it shows about $11,000. The majority of that, all but about $2,000, is reimbursed from the school system to our department. It shows that we have increased $25,000. My non-salary lines on the finance shows that it's increased $7,925. I have thrown in the $3,000 reserve, so technically we're under $5,000. I have zero control on any type of increase in check ordering that we print. We pay postage in our office, everything. I have zero control of that. We pay for our accounting software within the county in our office. There's so many things under our maintenance agreements that we pay for. I was able to save some money through our purchasing agent who renegotiated our copier contract through Canon. So you do see a small savings there. And I can speak on any other specifics. I actually have a spreadsheet that makes up the staff development if you'd like that as well.
No, my question is very plain. Is it absolutely all that necessary this year? And everyone should be prepared to answer that. Will the
That's fine.
department shut down if you don't do that training?
Our training, what we can do, we opt online, of course, because we don't have time to miss out of the office for several days. We are required to have continuing education. So yes, that is all required.
Okay.
I
Hang on,
asked you this
hang on.
question, sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Reed, your question to Ms. Jessie.
Mine was with a different department, remember?
I know.
How about the assistants? I said, I know you hired a contract person, which is doing a great job, by the way. 209% increase.
Sure, I can speak on behalf of that because I made that move. We do not have a deputy in our office. These 3 people that you see here are dedicating their time to you tonight graciously under the assistance line 103. There's 3 full-time employees there now.
So that's 3 full-time employees.
3 full-time employees. We no longer have a full-time employee coded as a deputy. I made that move through a budget amendment, I believe, in last October.
Now, they paid by the school?
These 2 are,
Okay.
100%.
So,
We're
about-
full county. I'm half schools and half county. He is 100% county.
I'm trying to be respectful. I'm just asking questions. Is it about 50,000 plus for each one of them?
Depends on the education. In these positions, it's a required education. On their salaries, it's a public records request, but I will be happy to answer that as long as you approach the other departments in same fairness that you're approaching me.
I think I've been in every department asking the same kind of darn question, because I have people that have degrees that are not even making anywhere close to this kind of money throughout the county. So, yeah.
Yes,
I'm
on
just
behalf
trying-
of them,
I'm just checking.
all.
You don't have to, I think I can figure out by dividing by 3 and get an idea. What?
They're not all equal pay, sir.
Okay.
It's 3 different positions within our department.
Anything else,
Thank you.
Mr. Reed?
No.
Okay.
Ms. Janet?
So I spent a couple of hours with Jessie a while back, but she's trying to teach me, bless her. Here's where my brain gets mixed up. If it's in here that we have this as an expense, but the school's gonna reimburse you, so how does that play out in the total of what our budget is?
It's
That does
offset
not-
on the revenue side at the
Sure.
very top.
If you go over to the revenue side of your stuff,
That total amount that they reimburse us
And
is
that
plugged
is
in.
on what page?
Looks
the
like it's
beginning?
on page 2.
Two. We talked about, I was an accounting major when I started college. I changed after a year. I was pretty sure I didn't want to do this. But a budget doesn't read like a
Sure.
balance sheet with debits and credits, and so it's very hard for me to follow.
It's page 2, 101-44990, other local revenues. The total is $648,339.
be the third line down.
Yeah, what's down, 990 is down here too. All right. So here we've got 648,339.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere else too. isn't it?
Okay, and that takes into account everything on that page?
I think we have it under another line. It's split as well. No, that's not it. Is it transfers in? Counting, we do it differently. We have it budgeted. I will find that for you while you ask other questions to other departments.
What's the pleasure of the committee? Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Ryan.
It's for Ms. Jessica. Which departments have showed the greatest increase from last year compared to this year?
Hang on just a second, and I'll scroll down to a summary page that I have.
That was hard for me too. You look over to the right and you look at the percentage of increase. Some of them look like they increased a whole lot. But if she's moved it from one place to another, it makes it increase, so we can't tell what's really going on, so we get all in an uproar and,
Well, it depends. So
Not
the
anything.
elections department is showing an increase of 17%. That's because we have a presidential election in this budget cycle. We've also got juvenile court is showing an increase of 19%, but that's because we have moved our budget for Safe Baby Court, which is a grant, and it's offset with the revenue, but we've moved it from general sessions to juvenile court. Or grants that they have within the sheriff's department, the majority of it.
If you remember, the state kind of changed the way the SROs, so that kind of skews where the sheriff's budget is now, as opposed to the schools and all that, the way it was done before.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
So if there's a grant to cover it, then it's not actually
It's not actually increasing it, but on my summary that I have, it just shows their prior year budget versus their current year or their next proposed budget. It's not 100% accurate because we have to budget the grants for you all to see. If I could somehow pull those grants out, that would be amazing, and then you could see the actual, but you have to approve everything all together, so we have to have it all in there. It is showing Department of Environment is increasing 15%, but that's because they did approve, during this fiscal year, the county commission approved for that additional person within that budget.
Other questions?
If we could take a black permanent marker and go through here and mark out everything that got a grant, would it
It
leave
wouldn't
us?
change your subtotal, so,
I just need to know what we're
A
really
for
paying
effort.
for.
But there's a summary of the biggest increases.
For the finance department, the other portion is contributions 101,48130. 152,000.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
So, at the bottom where it says contributions.
Yes, the 101,48, is it 130? 48130.
Got it.
After removing the ambulances, where we at now?
2.5.
If we add the 2 million in there, that was voted on, that will need to go to county commission as well. And then the 500,000, that leaves around 500,000 remaining.
How many pennies would that be? 4?
A lot better when we started.
Heck, a lot better than 21. 26, yeah.
Miss Carolyn would like for everybody to speak into their microphones a little louder. She said
Janet's
she could not.
4 pennies.
Okay. That's a good guesser.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
We got one more meeting.
We've not got any more scheduled.
Yeah.
But we'll have to have another one scheduled to vote on this other stuff, right?
Mr. Reed, that's,
Yeah.
Can we move to another section, or we need to do something on finance? Because I think she's explained it well.
you can ask anything you want to about 101 budget. That's what we're on.
Okay, can we take a look at county commission?
Page, please.
Page
Page
3.
3.
All right.
I assume that the board and committee member fees, we're talking about what we get paid per month, as well as like zoning, the zoning board gets an additional $100. Anybody else get any additional money for any of the meetings?
Does that include like there's planning, that's.
Planning, yes.
And then the regular scheduled quarterly, and then a special call like this is an extra $25.
I'm waiting for an answer back from wage and labor concerning like department heads, the difference between department heads and frontline employees. Because I know we were told that we can't do that, so I've got a request into that department at the federal level and asking them for an opinion on that. Because that's a big chunk of money, but you go down and you look at dues and memberships, $23,255. Jesse, do you know anything about that?
I'll try to speak on behalf of that. There's several items that make that up. COAT is one of them, county officials. all county officials are paid out of their dues and memberships on this. Every single one of you all, we have a membership that we pay for all of the full commission that we have to pay. You have to be a member of. There's several items on that. The mayor may be able to help me out on this one.
So you have, I'm sorry,
Sorry to call you.
I think it's on this item, your NACO dues for the county, less than 1,000, association, TVA governments, and the two TVA members of that, it's less than 1,000, so. But I think the code, the county officials, you know, where you get your training and all that, that's the most expensive thing that you can have.
Are you talking about the classes that we attend?
Yeah, you have to be a member to attend classes. Now, usually you don't pay, you know, they let you come.
Right.
So it's because you're a member of Tennessee Counties Association. So,
Mr. Mayor, does that cover, I know we do not have a commission secretary anymore, correct?
no,
So that's not in that 80,000?
no, it's completely paid out of the mayor's budget.
Lease payments are dropped out. I know legal services went up and probably will go up again. What about other contracted services, $35,930?
That's like what you sent me, is it East Tennessee,
Yeah, okay, so like
ETED?
East Tennessee Development District, it's assessed on population. And then you have ETHR, East Tennessee Human Resource Association, you see the ETHR vans, Office on Aging and stuff that they do. Those are assessed based upon your population in the last census. Just
Which
so you
in
know.
turn, they send us revenue
Uh,
on the flip side.
So like on ETHR, we get like $4 or $5 back every dollar we spend there in services that comes back up and costs us.
So there's nothing within this section here that you see we could cut at all?
They send us that bill.
Yeah, the only thing I see is, office supplies is to purchase paper, I believe, for you all, or if you have folders or anything, and office equipment, I don't know what we would use that for, probably,
But no
Folder.
equipment, but like on paper, if there's something going on with the county commission that requires a lot of paper, we may order a case. That's all it costs you.
I'm trying to look at the bigger figures.
So, but that's, all your administrative stuff comes through the mayor's office, we're happy to do it. We have time, we will do it, as long as it's on issue.
Mr. Mayor, don't leave. I need to ask the mayor a question.
All right?
Mr. Mayor, your travel, you have $10,000.
Yeah, I usually use around 8, somewhere there. It's not just travel. Any conference you go to, they charge you a fee.
Is there conferences you're required to go to?
Usually just Association of County Mayors, because it's an update, brings you up, bring back legislative updates. They also meet at the same time the Tennessee counties meet. County Executives of America, that's once a year. Association of TVA Governments, they meet 4 times a year. I used to go twice. I don't go to all of them. So usually I think I'm around 8, somewhere in there. In that range.
So you're saying you could cut it to 8,000?
Okay.
2,000?
We'll take it.
It's something.
Well, Litter Grant gets reimbursed. A lot of my travel gets reimbursed, that's the reason it goes to.
We have to have it on that line, though.
Okay, so,
required for litter grant travel.
And you also have to have ECD Governor's Conference for 3 stars.
so we get reimbursed on some of that that's in there. Yeah, that's where we're at. I'll work with them wherever you want me working, that's no problem, but usually about 8. And then the other 2's like Litter Grant and other stuff that we get reimbursed through the state.
That has to be in that line.
It has to be somewhere, yeah. So am I reducing that or am I keeping it?
Not heard a motion.
I make a motion to reduce that line item to 8,000.
Ms. Norton? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Reed. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. One opposed.
It's reimbursed. No, not all of it.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Thank you, Mayor.
Can I just make a statement? I've went through every one of them over and over. I mean, there may be a couple more where travel could be affected, but there's so much of it that's so vague. And you see where people have, department heads and elected officials have really taken the time to go through their budget. I really don't know what to say next. I know I would like to go back and talk about the school to get some answers. But I've been through this like 3 times and the numbers are running every which way.
Yeah, me too.
Well, the school budget is balanced, and we have a maintenance of effort issue. And also next year, and if you all wish, Mr. Tommy can comment on it. Next year, there is a significant change in the way that they fund. And there's going to be a significant request. So we'll do whatever you want to. If you all want Mr. Tommy to speak to that, I think he will. But the school budget was balanced. They did not request any more. Our problem is not in the school budget. Our problem is in this budget.
They didn't request any more than they did when? Last year?
Last year, or the year before. They've stayed at the same pennies for the last several years. Now, we did raise the sales tax this year. But again, half of that has to go to the school by law. So anytime we raise that for our budget, the school gets an increase in it. So if you all wish Mr. Tommy to address that.
I would like to ask him a question concerning, I know there's a new funding, so if you would, Director.
Your turn.
Yes.
I know that it wasn't I guess is, they're gonna cut some money from you that's supposedly coming in to make up for the loss of students within the school system. Am I seeing that or hearing that correctly from what I've been told? That like 835 students are now within the private church and like Lakeway school systems. Is that true?
So TISA is based on BEP. Everything's always been based on student enrollment. So ADM, average daily membership, is how we are funded. That is the base funding that comes in under TISA, and it is based on the average daily membership.
So that loss of 835 students didn't hurt us over the year, or?
So over a year?
Or over since, what, last couple of years, or how long has it been?
I don't know exactly what your question would be. So we've not lost 835 students based on.
What's the report?
I guess you're going by this record request that was sent out. That shows there's 835 students in public schools, or that are in non-public schools.
Right.
And some of those were never in, so that was not a loss in enrollment in the schools. Some of them never attended public schools in the first place. So based on average daily membership from last year to what we're seeing this year is around 85 students from last year to this year.
So but that will affect the funding coming from the federal government and state, right?
It'll affect the funding coming from the state, 85 times the base. Federal government is a different source that comes on, it doesn't come for students, ADM, it comes for economically disadvantaged students, students who are, receive some sort of federal aid, state aid, such as food stamps or whatever that may be. So that's totally two different sets of funding sources and requirements.
So for me to understand, and Dr. Arnold, maybe you can help me with this. Ms. Scarlett's talking about the maintenance of effort. So the maintenance of effort for Jefferson County for the school system of 23 or 24, 25 has not increased.
I did not say
Other
that.
than the sales tax.
You're right.
Yes.
Happy to answer that.
What I was speaking on before you were able to come to the meeting prior, I passed out the maintenance of effort, an updated maintenance of
Oh,
effort.
okay.
It's might be right in front of you or right beside of you. I set out copies. We received a letter at the very 1st of May that updated our required local match. So I have updated it since I sent this packet out. Our required local match is $13,661,646. That is as of the letter that was sent at the end of April, and we received it the 1st of May. We will receive another one, my assumption is in May and as well in June. So that number can, it can move, it can change. So difference to required maintenance of effort, we are now at $243,747. That number can change the next 2 months.
Typically, the state, Dr. Arnold, correct me if I'm wrong, sends out multiple changes over the course of this process.
Yes.
And our goal in the budget is to get you a reasonably workable budget, but it may or may not have to be amended as we go along with this thing.
Correct.
And what I said was that what they came in, the school system did not request and has not requested, I think, at least 3 years for any more pennies than what they had requested prior.
Right.
So they've got the same amount of pennies is what I'm saying.
Right. And the question about the state taking back money, that may have been what was discussed at the last board meeting. Was the state sent us notification that they had given us too much Title I money based on a funding formula error at the state level. So we had a reduction of $245,000 or so in year. It reduced by around $347,000, and then we will have a reduction over the next 5 or 6 years of $21,000 over that to make up for their error that they overpaid us.
Every district.
Every school district in the state, yes. So that's, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can imagine what that does to the school system. And also, we are under the largest teacher salary increase in the history of the state. And it's by the governor, and it's to get beginning pay to $50,000 for teachers. And what that does is, anytime there is a teacher raise, even the state mandates that and sets that beginning teacher pay. So basically, we have to give all of our teachers an increase, or year 6 teachers making the same as year 1. So we have to adjust that across the whole board. And the state only pays 70% of that increase. So we're a 70-30 split. whereas Sevier County is one of the highest ability to pay counties, and we're on the lower end of ability to pay. So anytime there's a raise, if that raise is $1 million, then the county's going to have to come up with $300,000 of that money, and the state's going to provide $700,000. And we're fixing to see a large increase next year, just because it's one of the largest steps to get beginning pay to $50,000 as a state requirement.
Just to speak on that, in 25-26, our minimum teacher will be 47,000, which will be a 6.82% increase from 24-25's. And then 26-27, it has to be at 50,000, which will be a 6.38% increase from 25-26.
Dreading it. That's
It took me 22 years to get there.
I know, that's a lot. I mean, that's, whenever we set this budget, we already knew we were in trouble going forward. It's just not there. So we're gonna have tough decisions to make, just like you are.
Thank you, Dr. Arnold.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Dr. Arnold?
Thank you, Dr. Arnold.
I was noticing too, the monies that they get went up from local sales option, payments in lieu of taxes, local, bank excise tax, and then they got an increase from TVA of 94,000, and that local sales tax was 193. And then when they get those increases, our match has to increase, right? They go up, we go up.
So I'm looking at it with you. So the local option sales tax is what I spoke on before, which our general fund 101 as well, because it does receive local option sales tax. So they receive 50% of that. So that's why it increased 193,000. That's 2.5% that I had to increase. The state revenue sharing TVA payments, we have no control over that. That goes to schools only. The county does not receive those funds. And to accurately budget what we are bringing in, we did have to increase, have to submit when we submit the approved budget. And at that point, if we do not meet that maintenance of F, can hold the TISA funds.
So our match went up 729,000.
This new TISA funding, this is kind of in 22-23, it was BEP. So 23-24 says proposed, sorry about that, it's approved, or budget, because we're in that right now. But it looks like it decreased to 12.9 million. That's because of the new TISA formula. So we're kind of comparing apples to oranges on those two columns. So really comparing 23-24 to 24-25, it did increase the required local match, $729,244.
There's an awful lot of things we have to do. Lord, wish they could pay them.
And it's a lot like the schools, you know, they're about 82 to 85% of the schools, and they're pretty consistent, are employees, salaries. It's just,
82.8 this next fiscal year is salaries alone.
and it's been that way.
Well,
Then
and
they've got
Jefferson
mandates
County,
of
I
the,
taught there 22 years, and I can tell you, we were some of the lowest paid around. So where this county's drug their feet a long time on paying their teachers, now it's coming in, the state's mandating it, it bites.
well, I mean, it's based on what Dr. Arnold's saying. It's something that's gonna happen, and it's something the state, and if we don't do it, they'll just hold the state money. But their budget realistically, 82+% is salaries. You've got federal monies that they have requirements on. You've got Carl Perkins grant, you've got all these title monies and all that. The amount of discretionary funding that schools got is about that big. It's somewhere in that 5 to 7%. that they can actually impact. The rest of it's, as you say, required. There's nothing they can do. What's the pleasure of the committee? We're still not balanced.
I know we've set aside that money for the garage.
Hang on, Mr. Ronnie. And then Mr. Norton can go. Go ahead, Mr. Ronnie.
We're at 2.5 million, correct?
Correct.
So if we revisit the bus garage again, that's another 500,000, correct?
It is in capital and it is earmarked for that, so it would have to be a change.
With the 2 million motion, if it does pass, with the 2 meetings with county commission, and then reducing the ambulances 500,000, we're at a deficit of 500,000 at that point.
So, like I said, I'm gonna make the motion that, put on hold, or that is, stop for the time being.
I'll second that motion.
500,000 for the county garage.
Mr. Ronnie makes a motion that the 550,
This is in Capital Fund 171. Okay, just wanted to make sure. That's $558,468. Now, we have already paid for the architect, $25,000 out of general fund balance.
Understand, it's not something we can't revisit later, but for time being, to get where we need to be, we gotta do something.
are you making the motion to pull that into the budget?
Yes.
Was it not already part of what we were paying?
It was in the capital budget.
It's in a different fund,
It's in a
Fund
different fund.
171, and we're looking at General Fund 101.
Okay, but we were gonna get to there, right? I mean, this is part of this year's 3.8 we're trying to do
No.
something with, right?
No.
We've already
no.
approved Capital Fund 171.
Capital's already went through, and it went the school, the roads, capital, debt service.
But they're part of the 3.8 that we were.
No.
The 3.8 is just the one.
3.8 or 3.9 that we started out
It's
with.
just 101.
Is just 101. The rest of them have nothing to do with that figure.
And they're currently all approved at this point.
So waiting on the garage is not gonna help us at all.
That's a different fund, and it's funded differently.
But yet the funds can still be used for the, debt service, correct?
Those funds are in
Well, to
capital,
balance
we're
the
using
budget.
half of it, which is reserved, set aside for that in a different fund. Capital Fund 171, it's not a reserve for General Fund 101, and only half of it is a reserve.
So actually, how many dollars are we talking about?
So the reserve that we're using to pay for this proposed project is a reserve of a little shy of $280,000. We already have those funds set aside in Capital Fund 171 for that. And then we're proposing an additional same amount to complete the project on an expenditure line, which is funded in Capital Fund 171.
So if we're going to do that, I guess, Mr. Ronnie, we'd have to have two motions. One would be to, let me think about this. One would be to impound the 2 pennies that were approved in that. And then the other one would have to be, we'd have to revisit that budget and revisit that reserve to take it out, I think.
Because it's already earmarked for.
Yes. So do you still want to do your motion, or, I mean, we can do it, we just have to go through some different processes because that's in a different fund.
So we would have to move pennies on the property tax rate. We have 4 pennies total going into Capital 171 for revenue. And we would have to move 2 pennies out of that to our general fund 101. And then the reserves are already set aside in general fund 171, so I think that would take a motion to undo those reserves, which is committed for capital projects by the full commission.
So how many motions are we looking at here?
One, to move the 2 pennies.
So I'll make the motion to move the 2 pennies.
You're making, okay.
I'll
So
second.
you're making the motion to move the 2 pennies from the capital budget.
Yes.
Okay, and that is your second. All right, is any discussion?
Question. Can we use money out of debt service to build the garage?
Not unless you have a debt. You have to have a debt first before you can use the debt service to pay that.
How would we accomplish that if we voted to do that?
Well, then you would be moving the same 2 or 4 pennies from debt service to capital at that point.
But we've got about roughly 14 million sitting in debt service right now, correct?
Correct. We can't move cash because that's strictly for debt. We can't move patient note, interfund loan type situation. But if we're removing 2 pennies from capital, we would not have that revenue to pay that back.
All right, so.
So maybe we take a loan to build it and then pay it back.
The interfund loan,
Yeah.
you have to, Ms. Jessie will have to have a way to tell the comptroller to pay it back. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it gets complicated, if you'll try to follow my ramble. Debt service collects, I don't want to misquote, but, you have to show a cash flow forecast, obviously, if you're doing anything before the comptroller would approve it. So I would have to show that capital fund 170 would have the means to pay that back to debt service at that point. I can reach out to local government if that's what you wish. I don't mind to send them an email and see if this is something they would approve. But something like that, I would definitely want their commission vote on it and then have to come back to you guys and say, sorry, that didn't work. Let's try again.
Okay, any other questions? Okay,
Just that it was my understanding that this was originally set up so that the landfill, road department, and the maintenance garage on a 3-year rotation would be able to use that 2 pennies for capital expenditures. So by moving that, that takes that away, right?
correct. And originally, they were set up to fund things that were not able to be done by those departments on their own because they didn't either have the cash flow, the means, and as you know, just like Mr. Galt, if Mr. Galt and his board go up on their tipping fee in 207, which operates the landfill, it requires an offsetting from 116 because we're just a customer of 207, and the 116 is your taxpayer fund. So, and I think Mr. Tipton, it was able to, was it a new paver, Mr. Charlie?
5 trucks.
Or trucks or something?
5 trucks.
5 trucks, yeah. It was things like that.
$1 million that I'm not paying.
That's right.
And then Mr. Galt was a dump truck, I believe is what it's called.
A roll-off.
Roll-off. He was the first year. Mr. Tipton was this current year, and this was approved 2 years ago, I believe, and Mr. Large was going to be this year, so we could save up the money and not be in a deficit for his addition.
Okay. Any other questions? Motion is to move 2 pennies out of the capital.
One more question. Would that be just for this fiscal year or?
Yes,
Okay.
just this year.
Okay. Make sure you get that in it is for this fiscal year only. And and then it would return, Mr. Ronnie, automatically? Okay. Are you okay on that one? Okay, second.
Struggle. Yeah.
I don't know, this is still a work in progress. All right, any other questions? All right, Ms. Jessie, call the roll.
Chairman Scarlett,
No.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Snodgrass,
No.
Commissioner Solomon,
No.
Commissioner Douglas,
No.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Walker,
No.
Commissioner Reed.
No.
Okay, it
Motion
fails.
fails.
Chairman, I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to explain why I said no. I think it's a very reasonable proposal, but I want to understand what monies we can or can't use to build this facility with first. If we can form an interdepartment loan, ever how that works out.
The thing with the interdepartment loan is we have got to show the comptroller that we can
Right.
repay it. So, I mean, it's got to be something there that says, and we have done, Sarah, Mr. Galt's for example, has got a interdepartment loan out there. But the revenue from his pays it back. So there has to be, in doing that, it's not just as easy as saying, okay, we're going to just write up a loan and we'll pay it out of debt service. That doesn't work.
His is being paid back. It's just a tax revenue anticipation note, which was anticipating property tax to come in. Property tax isn't collected until February, March time, so we were able to pay his loan off back to debt service. It's basically to kind of help his cash flow for the year. And so we were able to pay it off in April, once we collected the property taxes.
So it doesn't sound like we can take money out of debt service. Doesn't sound too promising to get this building built.
Not unless we somehow have increased revenue that we're waiting on to pay it off, to help cash flow. That's what you have to show. And that's really easy in that situation, since property taxes aren't collected till later in the fiscal year. And so,
Any other questions? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is there any type of fee we could establish anywhere to help us bring more revenue in, like for the developers, a developer fee that wants to put a subdivision in?
Let me let the mayor comment on that, because he has gotten some news on what we voted on here just short.
It's not good news.
I didn't say it's good news, I just said you had news.
So the added facilities tax, school tax, however you want to name it, they passed that legislation that you have to have 20% growth in between census. Or you can have 9% in 4 years, but you have to pay for a special census. Prove that. And, we approved it in April, and you have to have 2 consecutive meetings. It can't be a special call on this one. So it's gonna be July, but effective July the 1st, when the governor signs this come July 1, you have to meet the criteria, and you're frozen at whatever January 1, 2024, which we're at $1. And unfortunately, we're at $1 unless we have 9% in 4 years or 20, or 20% in 10 years. So,
Is there anything else that other counties do that we could possibly, I know the designation of the county is tourism, agricultural, but is there
Yeah,
anything that you're able to look at and see?
they did add a commercial, square foot.
We can't use it.
In commercial, which we don't have, we're only residential. They added that, and it's not nowhere near $1, and most places are trying to attract commerce, and so a lot of them are not doing it. We're suffering from the growth of counties that have astronomical growth, Weaver County, some of those counties down there, and at first I thought we were gonna lose our $1. But we got grandfathered in, so we still get to keep the facilities tax. there was an effort to eliminate that as well, so.
And where does the, I know I've had questions about where the tax goes, where does it go once it's collected?
Goes to school debt.
I thought it was debt services in general.
Was-
Debt
That's where it
services.
is. I mean, that's
We
where
got all
the
kinds of
school.
money in debt services, we just can't pay off any debt with it.
I bring the,
It's crazy.
yeah, so that's, I was about as happy about it as you were when I read it, and I went back and read that legislation. It said January 1, 2024.
How about any of the permanent fees?
I don't know. I'm not really up to date on the permit fees. We're just going with what we got. We possibly could. I'm not real sure.
We may already, but what about like Sevier County does a short-term rental tax, like for the Airbnbs and cabins. We have a lot of cabins in Parish Chapel.
The cities are doing it.
I think we're losing some money. Mr. Harden would have to speak to them where we're at. Everybody I've talked to, they've brought in, some people are doing Airbnb that we don't know about. They say they're not doing it, but there's other companies that look for counties and they come back and say, well, you're advertising online, you're booking, and then when you go check if they're actually in that county, so.
And we need the Airbnbs also to back up some of these venues and things that we have around here, the shopping downtown. I went to price a hotel room the other night for a client who's coming in from state. It was $179 a night, and they're booked.
If you can find one.
Yes, they're booked. If we didn't have these Airbnbs, they wouldn't have anywhere to stay, and we need them down here for our small businesses to purchase. There's 19 in Dandridge that we know of.
Probably more you don't know.
Yeah. Well, they're researching it. Dandridge is researching it. They're all over it.
For me to answer appropriately right
Try to
now.
regulate them to death,
Would you mind looking into it?
but we need them.
Thank you.
Mr. Solomon.
Brad, this is probably for you. How much have you cut from your budget already? Or can you tell me that, or Jessica one? And I'm gonna say thank you for doing what you did, standing up.
I'm just sitting here looking at
He's
place else that I can cut it.
currently cut 500,000 for motor vehicles. We've added in his reserve. That was to purchase cots to offset this of 53,000 on the revenue side to offset it.
Can you give me a percentage of how much it is that he's already cut in his budget?
The original proposal was like at 12%, if I remember correctly, and it's currently down to 4%. According to Jesse's little magic computer here. Cause I'm not that smart to do that math in my head. Just so you, understand the impact that medical insurance has on the increases, I'm sorry. The increases have, because mine's one of the larger departments, individual departments. That variance or that increase this year for medical insurance was $215,000. I have no control over. And so as far as my budget goes, that original with that 500 increases, so we've took almost everything we can away because of that medical insurance increase is 200 something thousand. So, I mean, I could,
Salary lines, which is the 300 and below, that does not include payroll or any associated costs. Now that we've pulled the 500,000 out, he's decreased his entire budget $250,917.
but I'm sitting here looking because here's the thing I don't know is I've applied for a reimbursement grant with the state that I'm not gonna know about until now September. So, I mean, we're talking, I mean,
5% is what you've cut so far, let's just guessing.
yeah, so, I mean, you know.
With that being said, I'll make a motion that Jessica go back and let in every department from nonprofits, every department, make them cut 5% where they can cut and then bring it back to us. I make a motion that if Brad can do it, everybody else can do it. Because we need ambulances, and he's cut it 5%, and I think every other department needs to cut 5%. If he can do it, everybody else can.
Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Pope.
If we're gonna talk about individual departments, I'd be glad to talk to you now, not wait. I'm prepared to do that. So, Mr. Phillips done a great job. I'd be glad to talk to you about my individual budget right now.
Just hang on till we get, is there a second to Mr. Solomon's motion? Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Reed?
Jesse, could you turn over to page 18 for building inspection? Okay, Supervisor Director, you got a 13% pay raise?
Okay.
This is a move we're trying to equalize our directors. This director has been underpaid or not at the level that other directors and other departments have been at. This is not his request. This is just trying to equalize and get him on the same level as other directors. Just trying to treat employees fairly. That's all this is. So this puts him the same as the zoning director, not as much as environmental, but that's what this is. 3% of it's for the COLA, so 10% to get him to the same level as other department directors.
And as you all know, the mayor is a department head of several of these. I mean, I'm not using the term right. But these departments are under the mayor, and it is his request that brought this forth.
It was a need that I saw, and of course, this is long before we got into the budget process, but this is just something I think we should address sooner than now. Should have already been taken care of. The question that increase, just level that out.
Thank you for the explanation.
Hold on, Mayor.
Mayor,
Sorry.
Mr. Snodgrass got a question.
And I apologize for not approaching you with this previously, but back to staff development. You've got one staff in tourism, right? Yes.
Got two full.
Two. So you got $5,000 in the budget for staff development. I'm just asking, is that absolutely an essential function to keep that department operating or not?
That would be one I'd have to defer to Lauren on.
Okay.
I know she has one new employee. That may be the answer. I don't know. Mr. Snodgrass, I can't answer. I can find out and get you.
And there's a $20,000 increase in tourism communication, another $20,000 increase in advertising.
Grant.
That does not affect this. The tourism department is funded out of the hotel motel tax,
Okay.
Mr. Snodgrass. So, I mean, I'm not dismissing but it will not affect our property tax rate.
Okay.
Tourism, your hotel motel tax, we're still one of the counties that can use it for economic development. You give $100,000 to Jefferson Lights, and then what you give to tourism. Anybody else that adds this hotel motel, some counties don't, they're just now getting it. Anybody new has to use it exclusively tourism only. So we're very fortunate right now. But all those funds, tourism's our best ROI we've got in the county, what they bring back. It just really is.
So, if those monies weren't there, where else would that money be spent?
We can't, it's just like when we talked about the chamber earlier, the comptroller had told Miss Jessie that they're really, really focused this year on hotel motel tax. And there's just a narrow band that they will allow. So if it was not, it would be, I mean, we could set it aside in a reserve and buy industrial land with it, or funding, something, economic development like that.
And that's gonna be
And yes, but there's a very, very narrow band that can be spent on.
There are some people that have taken some liberties with that money, some other counties, and I'm not naming any. And they have a very watchful eye of the comptroller on them on using those funds for what they consider unapproved uses. So the county would have to reimburse that. We're not in that position. We're nowhere near that. I can give you some good news.
Well,
It'd
I
be
guess
good.
let me wrap up my point is, in our recent community survey, tourism was ranked the lowest as, for future development, but
That's because they cater to people who don't live here. As we bring them in. Hotel, our return, like the balloon festival, somewhere around 14,000 people who come into the county. We hosted the high school high school tournament and the collegiate tournament. Something like 8,000 people came through during that time. So as far as, we like that. They come in, they pay their
They lose
taxes.
their money,
leave.
yeah, leave.
So, Jim, that's a good point on the survey, but really it's more like the people that's coming in.
Yeah, when I saw, that's our bread and butter.
But one of the good things that I just found out today, it's taken us a year to get Medicare approval at the Jefferson Park in White Pine in order to fill that up to residents, so that's really good news. I want to at least bring some good news. That's
Thank-
Go ahead.
We're supposed to be getting sewer at, was it 415 exit as well? And that'll help to build that exit up. And same thing with up here at 417, because we have sewer at that exit. If you drive by exits, and of course my husband was a sewer guy, so I know this. Wherever you've got sewer, you've got businesses, and when you've got businesses by the interstate, people get off, they spend their money, and they go away. They don't use our facilities, so that's a no-brainer. So we should see some increase as well from
That's our
taking the sewer up
philosophy,
to that
but we don't
exit.
have it created in our mission statement.
When you look into those things we talked about, Mr. Mayor, would you also consider maybe looking, I don't know what you would call it, but we do have so many people that come through Jefferson County, they stop and they eat, they pick up and they leave. I know the Sevierville or Pigeon Forge, they have like a, I don't know what tax they call it, but it's like a 1 or 2% tax.
Yeah, I know Mr. Bird was looking at that, and he asked Sevier County, and it's something about the sort of thing. I checked around.
We get their overflow.
Yeah, I know. We get their bills is what we get. So, I talked to TCAT about it, and they're like, you're like, they're going to get resort status. We've got 2 TPA lakes, fishing tournaments, and I'll be happy to pursue that again.
I mean, that would be, I'm just trying to think of every which way we maybe could get revenue coming in because we're so poor. It seems like we're so far behind, but, you know, we also got all this money the last several years, and it looks like maybe we didn't do a good job
Talk
of
about our
spending
money
it.
and stuff, yeah. So,
With us bite us, and evidently it has.
it's not that easy.
No, it's not. Thank
Did I
you.
answer Mr. Snodgrass, everything on tourism? Yes.
As far as the ARPA money, I mean, let me make that clear. The finance department was pretty diligent in what we did. We are not in the same places that a lot of counties are. A lot of counties took that money and they gave raises and they went to the movies and eat popcorn and did, I'm just being facetious, but they did a lot of things that they shouldn't have. This county was not in a position that we had to jump out there and spend that money. Careful consideration was given on that, and whether it was the build out of the internet that Appalachian had, whether it was the payment of the utilities, water systems, all of that, that money was spent pretty diligently. The only thing that we did, and we knew what it was doing, and we said last year in the budget, these will come back into the budget. We spent money on certain things in the budget that was ARPA, but it was absolute, made clear last year by the finance department, these would come back into the budget. It reduced the tax increase last year, but we knew ahead of time they are reoccurring expenses and they would be back in the budget. What's the pleasure of the committee? Anybody got anything else?
If any other department heads want to join him and see what they can cut would be awesome.
Mr. Mayor?
I got a question. So you're asking me to call a special call meeting in addition to the special call for the budget?
Is that your
We
request?
already have you're telling me we already have one?
You have a June 24th, it's a special call for the budget.
And that's when we have to set the tax rate.
Yeah.
But we
And
gotta
she
fix
has
this
advertised
before,
it June 8th, but we don't have
Yeah.
to give that much leeway for just a special call.
yeah, we'll
5
need
to 7
one
days, so,
in order to do that, yeah.
so we could have a special call the week before that, just for the purpose of voting on your change resident, whatever, and then you can add that to
Recommendation, yeah.
the budget.
I'm thinking you probably need to have it, you at least need to have one of those votes before Ms. Jessie has to publish that on that budget, because I mean, if you're doing that and you don't have that vote until you get there, then are you publishing the thing for the hearing for that? Because if you're assuming that's gonna be in the budget, you've got to balance this thing some way. And until that's voted on, you can't balance it. Am I correct or not?
So, if we ran it this week, the 23rd, Steve, you do have paper this week, so the 23rd, it would be out. That would be 1 week, the 30th, you could have a special call. And that would be prior to her publishing the budget, because if it fails, there's no.
If you don't get 2/3 vote there, then it's impossible.
Where's the chair? You okay with the 30th?
Because Miss Jessie's gonna have to formulate the budget that she sends out.
I won't be here May 30th, but you all can carry on business without me.
May 30th? I won't be here.
That's
so,
just a
I mean,
special call to vote on the resolution. Okay.
I can fit that in, but, the advertising, I have to have it to the paper by June 4th.
June 4th.
June 4th. I believe Tuesday's deadline for the paper advertising on standard, and then. Okay, so June 4th for the standard by 10 a.m., so we would have to meet prior to that.
So let me ask you this, can you, and this may be a lawyer drenning question, can you build the budget without that second vote taken? You have to have a firm, you have to have a firm revenue source, is that correct?
That's absolutely correct,
Okay,
because I have to send what I'm advertising, I'm sorry.
I have to send what I'm advertising to the comptroller's office as well at the same time, just so they can look over it before you all have the final vote on June 24th. And so I would have to send it to them as well.
so if you sent that, you would have to send it
I would
with
not have
a,
approval
with
at
a,
that point.
with a tax increase or some, you've got to have some source of revenue.
I have to have some source of revenue.
Okay,
I've
so,
got another plan for you. We can have 3 special calls, because we already got one, so we just have 2 for this. So you can have one on the 30th and roll back to June the 6th the following week, and have 2 Thursdays in a row.
School board does meet on June 6th at 5:30 in this room.
Okay, I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll be at one or the other, so.
Oh, okay. Well, like I say, the logistics of the thing is what I'm worried about, and whatever it is, and ever how we balance, but she's got to have a firm source of revenue when she sends that
Right,
budget
what
in.
I advertise, I have to send to them. And then if it does pass on June 24th, I submit it on June 25th to them at that point. And that finalizes what I've sent to them, so there has always been changes and things, but I do have to propose something to them at that point.
So this committee has to pass something that has firm revenue prior to June 4th. Or really June 3rd. June 3rd, That won't work if you're proposing that second meeting then, because we have to provide that. If she's publishing that, she has to provide that.
Okay, so I'm not real sure they have to be a week apart, because we have plenty of time to advertise right now.
You can call emergency meeting in 3 days. That's what you say.
As long as it's on the board and on the internet.
So let me ask you this question, Ms. Chick. When do you need this? 1st of June, preferably?
June 3rd.
June 3rd.
I have to send it no later than 10 a.m. on June 4th to advertise. And I
Okay,
do
so
not wanna
everything
be up
has
all
to be
night.
done and has to be voted on the 2nd, no later than June the 2nd.
That's a
Okay,
Sunday. so-
Saturday. 1st, so that's May 30th is the last day then.
Yes.
May 30th to June 3rd.
You can't do it June the 3rd.
I apologize. The notice of the public hearing is published, the public hearing notice is published in the local paper on May 30th,
May 30th.
per our budget calendar,
Okay,
because this is our third review, and I personally have never gone past a third review, so this was our budget calendar, so we would
Is
have to
that
amend our
required or
calendar.
something we can change?
You have to do it so many weeks, I believe it's 3 weeks before, to give the public enough notice.
there's a requirement from the state that has certain days, and there's a requirement for a public hearing, and they have so many days to sign up after the published thing, and then there's a cutoff date, and there's about 4 or 5 things that we have to hit on that thing.
So I would have to send it to them on May 28th, Tuesday, May 28th.
Okay. So that May 27th, today's the 20th, so that meeting,
That's Memorial Day next Monday.
so, no, she's sending it, she said the 28th.
Tuesday by 10 a.m., May 28th. Or May 28th, because it has to advertise on May 30th, Thursday.
Okay, so you gotta have 2 votes prior to May 28th, 10 a.m.
Sounds like it.
Or you have to give a tax increase or budget cuts or whatever by then. We have to have balanced budget,
About May 28th.
10 a.m., May 28th.
Preferably before 10, that's fine.
Well, 9:58, whatever, you gotta have it. So if that's Memorial Day, realistically, you're the 24th. That's this Friday? Ooh. It's gonna be a tall order there. 2 meetings.
What was the 3 day? 3 days? Would that make it Thursday or Friday? How does that 3
3
day
days
rule?
would be the 23rd, Thursday.
So Friday?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
What's going to change? If we're not changing, if there's not a source that you've not looked at yet, my question respectfully to the committee is,
bids gonna hit. So my question is, what's gonna change when we have the next meeting that we can't do right now?
We have to vote twice. We can't, we have to vote twice.
You can vote tonight to do something, and then you can make your, what is it, 30th? We can make that deadline if you vote to pass something tonight. We can make that work. So something has to be done.
Tonight, correct.
Well, I say we need to start cutting somewhere if we want to do it.
Well, everything I've tried to cut, I've been told I can't cut.
Well, there's things that we have to do.
Without the hospital, without any funding from that, because we've not voted 2 meetings, 2/3 vote, we are at 2.5.
Well, we're too tight if you want to go back, because that's got to come over. But you're 2.5 right now.
2.5.
How many pennies?
21, 22, somewhere in there. But the pennies will change, and I don't want everybody to get hung up on the pennies. The pennies will change depending on what Miss Susan finds out on the certified rate. That will the value of a penny will change. That's almost an absolute, is it, Miss Susan?
It is an absolute, and
We just don't know what it is yet.
I hope to have that figure by Friday.
Okay.
What the certified rate is, and then before the meeting in June, and the end of the equalization board, I can also tell you what a penny will be worth.
Okay. So don't get hung up on the pennies, but the money will not change. 2.5 million is where we're at.
Is that including the hospital?
No, because it has not been voted on twice by 2/3.
So that
You
wouldn't,
still got to end this by June 29th, because July 1st, you're going to work. So we got to come to this.
Without the hospital, it's 19 pennies. With the 2 million hospital, it's 4 pennies.
and say it don't go through, then we're gonna be back in the same check before end right now, so we gotta do something tonight.
Correct.
So I got an option. Tomorrow's the 21st, you gotta have 3 days notice. You can leave Friday. That's the 24th. Then you turn around, and on the same advertisement, May the 30th is good, right?
No,
May,
28th
can the meeting be on the 28th?
by 10 a.m.
Man, this is good. Unless you had one Friday and one Saturday.
Has anybody seen $2 million in cuts? Anybody? $2.5 million in cuts.
Well, John Neal, how much did you have to cut, John?
About $1 million if it had been total. Mr. Brad volunteered 500 of that, so there's still $500,000 there. Miss Jessie.
Okay, so, Mr. Brad has been looking at his patient charges, and we looked at those, and that's on the revenue side. It's on your page 101-43120. We did increase it slightly this year to make it 4 million even, based off of actual. I don't want to speak on behalf of him, but I think, do you think we're 4.2?
I think we're gonna hit 4.3.
We think we're gonna hit 4.3 million, so we can adjust that to 4.3 million.
It's gaining you $300,000.
$300,000 right there. He's also come up with another list of reductions. On his 55130, I should have that memorized.
What page, Miss Jessie?
It looks like it's page 20.
Thank you.
With those ambulances being pulled out of the budget, he's offered to eliminate his need for other equipment, because my understanding those would be the cots on the ambulances. So keep in mind, if we do reduce that, if we come back in the fall or early January for that need,
I'm gambling on a state grant, so that's where.
we
that's where
really might need these funds. But he is offering to reduce that to zero.
I'm pretty confident we're gonna get the state grant for about that same amount, so it'll be a wash.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if you do not get it, we will still, you're gonna come back and ask, probably.
I'll try to make it work.
Okay,
We're gonna pull that out, so.
so that's 400,000 more,
So then, hang on.
2.1.
Thank you, Brad. I wish the other departments would step up and do it.
Would be awesome.
So let me speak on that behalf, because I don't want to throw any other department heads under the bus. Listen, I've got a huge budget. I can probably absorb more impact than some departments that only have one person. So I don't want you to think that other departments aren't working their best, because I know that they are. We're all trying to work.
I'm not saying they ain't, but I mean, I appreciate you doing it. If you can do it and you're a reliable service for the county, then these other people should be able
I have
to
one of
do
the
it.
largest, I have one of the largest budgets, so it's a little easier for me to make adjustments than it is for other departments, so.
And everybody needs to understand with Mr. Brad, when we're taking those ambulances out, we may or may not have to have that discussion later on, depending on what the trade schedule, depending on what the lead times are, so everybody be aware.
So if you do happen to take out the $2 million, just for and giggles, it looks like at that point, if you increase property taxes 15 pennies, that would generate an additional $2 million in revenue. And that would leave your budget using $115,000 to fund balance to balance the budget.
Are you talking, you said the two,
2 million is where we're at.
I know, but you said take away the two, are you talking about the hospital fund?
No.
Yeah, I took the hospital fund out of there,
Out.
just
this-
to let you know if that was not to pass
pass.
with the two meetings.
Okay.
You would be looking at, this is without the hospital funds at all, you'd be looking at a 15-cent property tax increase to balance the budget.
And at this point, based on what the mayor's told us and what Mr. Carmichael's told us, we're not going to get the 2 meetings in to vote that prior to Miss Jessie publishing. She's got to send a balanced budget to the comptroller that publishes it.
I don't know how we can. Unless you add more days, it might be.
I'd like to have a longer month, but all right, so we're at $2 million. Mr. Reed.
I think Mr. Poe would like to address us. Is that?
Yeah, only if you keep talking about individual departments cutting. I mean, because I don't want to sit here and not have an opportunity to present what my budget looks like to you if you're still looking at departments for cuts. So I don't want this to go any longer than it needs to. So if you need me to speak to you, I'm more than happy to, as it relates to my department and its ability or inability to cut.
Has anybody got a question for Mr. Poe concerning cutting his cutting his
Do you
department?
think you could cut anywhere?
I pay my employees.
Mr. Poe, would you step to the microphone,
Give me
please?
yes or no, and then, and you'll like what I follow up with.
Yes,
You can, okay.
yes, I can.
I've seen his books. I've been over to his department twice. I have seen the spreadsheets that he keeps, the office that he keeps, and I trust what he says.
So to give you an idea, what she's showing you is my budget. Everything down to line, what's the line above 320? 307. So from 53,100, 101 down to 53,100, 307, I do not manipulate. there are 3 line items that are required, or that are offset with reserves, so that you do not fund them. I fund them with my own revenue. Those are lines, do you have the offset with reserves? Looks like, what are those? I think that, just to give you an idea real quick here, looking at offset with reserves. Line 53-100, 411, offset with reserves. Line 53-100, 350, offset with reserves. And line 53-100, 709, offset with reserves. So that leaves, and 411. So that leaves in my department what I'm able to manipulate, and again, not asking you to micromanage my budget. I'm capable of doing that. But to give you an idea, it was asked earlier about mandatory payments or mandatory bills, and specifically the maintenance line. State law TCA 18.1.5 says that it is the requirement of the court clerk to install and maintain the Tennessee Court Information System. That's state law. The Administrative Office of the Courts owns it. So there's $53,000 in line 53-100, 334. That's mandatory. It's got to be paid. Again, state law. So I don't manipulate that line. It has to be paid. They're going to send you a bill and you got to pay it. Postal charges went up. I mail jury summons. We've went up exponentially over the last 2 or 3 years, so I have to mail things. The staff development per diem line is $1,000 in the court clerk's office. There's also another TCA that mandates that. It says it is the official duty of each court clerk to attend the meetings of the state court clerks conference. Unless you are unable to attend for good and sufficient reason, that good and sufficient reason is determined by the Supreme Court. So I have to go. I'll be glad to pay it myself. I've got about $1,000 that you could cut there. The second is $50 for local mileage. That's if in my absence an employee has to use their personal vehicle. To pick up the bank bags at First Horizon, they have to be paid. You cannot send them in their own personal vehicle and not pay them. That's $50. So I do have the ability to cut my budget, $1,050. I would just say that you'd probably be answering to the, I would pay my own way to the conference, but you'd probably be answering to the Supreme. $50 I can absolutely cut. And if you have any questions specifically on anything I spoke to him. An additional, let's talk about this. This is a fun topic, growth of the county. The legislature just passed a bill signed by the governor, Public Chapter 947. They evaluated Jefferson County, the 4th Judicial District, and said that Jefferson County and the 4th Judicial District, Jefferson County and Sevier County's growth requires another circuit judge. They're coming here effective September the 1st. That speaks to the case volume in Jefferson County exponentially increasing over the last 5 years. They took that position from Shelby County. Shelby County, exponentially higher population than Jefferson County, and moved a 4th judicial, and I submit my $1,050 for.
Mr. Poe, I just want to say thank you because I've been to your office so many times and you've explained everything to me. You went over these with me line item by line item, and I sincerely appreciate what you do for the county and what your employees do for the county.
If it would help, this county has made several symbolic resolutions over the past. You've sent a message to Nashville on the way that you stand on certain topics. That has an impact on our legislators, both state or House and Senate. If you want to draft a resolution, I will fully support it, that my raise that's mandated from the state be 1% less than county employees receive. And I'll support that. I'll testify in the House and Senate to support that. I don't know what that total comes out to be, but that might get you another $2,000, so $3,050.
Any other questions for Mr.
That
Poe?
is something that's mandated by the state. I mean, all elected officials got a 5% pay raise. That is one of my questions for the 3 elected officials at a town hall coming up. I have 2 questions. One of them.
I submit to reduce my mandatory raise to 1% less than what the county employees get. You'd have to make that a resolution and get Jeremy Face and Andrew Farmer to put it forward, but I'd happily support it.
Any other questions for Mr. Poe?
Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the committee? We're at $2 million.
So, we can't have the special call. We can't have the special call in time to meet this deadline, all right?
Based on what Ms. Jessie has to publish, based on what the mayor said, we can't get it worked in time to have the 2 meetings. So without a firm revenue source, it cannot be the $2 million. It can be voted on later, it can be put in there, I mean, but it can't be what she sends into the comptroller.
Okay. So does that mean what she sends, we have time, let's say we have these special call meetings, we have time to approve this other $2 million?
Well, theoretically, we're doing this in June, the 24th, is that right? So June 24th, it will go before the full commission. The full commission at that time can accept our recommendation as a budget committee. They can turn it down, they can change it, they can do whatever. You would, in theory, have time prior to that June 24th meeting to vote on this twice, to see if it was, and it could be entered in then. But it cannot be entered in to the budget that Ms. Jessie sends to the comptroller, because that's got to be what she advertises, and we're held certain days advertising. So Ms. Jessie said the 28th, 10 a.m., that's when the clock starts.
Okay. So in conclusion, we only have one option at this point, and that's to move forward with the tax increase in order to meet that deadline.
It would appear so.
Or, I'm sorry, that's when,
I mean,
we
there's
go
two-
in and
two
cut out
choi-
$2 million.
Yeah, you
There's
can
two
cut
options.
$2 million out of the budget, or you can raise $2 million worth of revenue, or you can use a combination of both. But that's where we stand.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I lost track.
You are ex-official committee member. Please step forward.
So, if you have a special call after she publishes the budget, and that's the approval of the first reading of the resolution. So when the full body meets again on the budget, can they then do it? I mean, because the county commission can change the budget on the 24th.
Yes,
I mean,
in theory, the second meeting could be the 24th of June.
Right. So county commission could change it then, but if you have a meeting before then, it doesn't pass, it's not gonna happen, right?
Well,
I'm just asking.
you could have a meeting every day prior to June 24th.
But what I'm asking is, if we have a special call at some point prior to the 24th, the 24th could be your second meeting, and the budget is still approved by the entire body.
That's what I say. We're only recommending, and they can take the recommendation of the majority of the budget committee. They can not take it. They can pick it apart. They can go through this budget line by line as commissioners.
Pass something
Correct.
Let me clarify what I meant to say. I might not have said it clear enough when I asked the question. Is, you've just got to pass something. It can go in front of the full county commission and look totally different. We got to pass something tonight.
So to answer your question, Mayor, yes, the 24th could be, as long as it's taken before the budget comes up on the,
Follow-up question.
you're a right curious feller tonight.
Well, I'm going to call it special call meeting, so I kind of need to know. So you would need a special call prior to the June 3rd deadline really is.
That, if you don't enter into that, and you call that the second meeting on 24th, the June 3rd deadline, the May 28th deadline, none of that comes into play.
Okay. So my question is, when would it be feasibly possible to have that first special call meeting? You okay with advertising and having it on the 30th?
Well,
Week?
Ms. Jessie said she will not be here on the 30th.
The 29th, I believe, is, or whatever, the 27th is Memorial Day, 30th is that Thursday.
Mr. Solomon said he won't be here the 30th.
I need some direction.
Jesse,
Okay.
do you have a backup if you're not here? Like, do one of these guys step in?
1, 2, 3. They've heard it this whole time. I'm sure they can reiterate the same thing I've been saying. Don't plan it on me. It's just, I would need an update ASAP because I will need to send it in for advertisement.
Right?
Correct.
This is a procedural thing for county commission, it's not necessarily finance. Doesn't come into play unless this passes, then you have a second vote.
Correct. So, I mean, you can have it on the 30th, you can have it on June, whatever, a week later. I mean, it does not matter when you have the meeting. That does not come into play. What we're dealing with tonight is we have to provide Jesse with a balanced budget with a firm revenue stream.
Okay, so I'll find a date for a special call and we'll have, and if it passes, we'll have on the 24th, we'll add that to the agenda of the special call for the budget.
Yes, that on the 24th.
Okay. Thank you.
So we do have a meetings now, we're gonna vote on it. If the first one passes, then we have the second one.
Correct. The mayor's going to notify when the first one is.
I'm gonna ask a week for
Pick a date. It can be, what is the pleasure of the committee? When do you want that first meeting? Do you want it May 30th?
I believe sooner is better.
Yeah, sooner's better. Because if this doesn't pass the first time, we're gonna start digging hard to find $2 million.
that gives you a month.
What about Monday, June 3rd? I mean, that's just 2-day difference. I've already advertised at that point. That wouldn't really delay too much. I know Mr. Solomon said he wouldn't be able to be here on the 30th. I don't know who all would be out of pocket. That's
Is
a
that-
Monday
Is that agreeable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
June 3rd.
at
You tell me when to
5:30.
be here, I'll be here whatever day it is.
June 3rd, first meeting, second one, the 24th. Okay.
June the 3rd, 5:30. Special call for, I can't remember what the resolution, in other words, these two meetings,
So when is it?
June 3rd, 5:30.
and it was taking 2 million and putting in offset the budget.
Correct.
That's all it's saying.
2 million from the hospital fund to offset the tax increase. Or offset the budget, or how do you want it to read, Miss Jessie?
To offset the budget. is
Offset
how
the,
it would be.
offset revenue in the budget.
So if, let's just play it out, would we want to go ahead and special called budget committee following that if, or will I have a resolution tonight
won't-
to advertise?
We're gonna do something tonight, because you've got to have it the 28th 10 a.m. or 9:58 or whatever you said. So we got to do something tonight, basically. What's the pleasure of the committee? As Mr. Snodgrass asked, you've got three options. Increase taxes, cut spending, combination. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Looking for somewhere else to cut. We can't do anything with. I can't think either. It's hard to sit here and guess what we can and can't cut because what looks like it's an increase may or may not be.
I'll be happy to answer any questions you specifically have. The majority of the travel, 355, has been moved to staff development, 524 on almost every department, so that would answer. Most of the grants are within the sheriff's department, 54110. It's right before the EMS budget. I can't, yeah, most of them do have a cost center. It's the 5-letter afterwards. If you see that, that is more than likely a grant and it's offset with revenue.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
I'm looking at Department of Environment, and other salaries and wages went up $42,428
That was the additional person that was added,
for,
the second person in that office.
They were added,
Personnel
I
committee.
believe, in last October.
Personnel committee passed that, and the commission passed that after the budget committee approved it.
What page of the nonprofits?
Department of Environment, page 21.
27 nonprofits. That's what he asked.
on the Agriculture Extension Services Staff Development, that's $5,000 new proposed. Whose baby's that?
What page, please?
25.
That would be Miss Karen Nelms. I'm not sure if she's here in the audience or not, but I can probably speak on behalf of her.
Is that required staff development?
All I have is, for my notes, they reduced their travel, 355, 3,000, so they've moved that 3,000 to 524 and increased it $2,000 because they have 4 agents and 1 program assistant, and it's for conferences and per diems.
That pattern is the same across everyone.
All across. We're going by the chart of accounts. We're correcting our accounting code and moving local travel. 355 is more for reimbursement for local miles being reimbursed. If I were to drive, I believe like Mr. Poe commented, if I were to drive to the post office and request mileage reimbursement at that point, that would be 355. If I were to go to Murfreesboro for a conference, that's out of 524 staff development.
If they're not here, I don't know if I can
I'm sorry.
Somebody to say it's mandatory or not, or we can cut it.
Mr. Snodgrass is on the Ag Committee. He can probably address that.
For soil conservation?
No, for Extension Service.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Agricultural Extension Services, staff development. They didn't have any money in last year, and this year they're asking for $5,000.
They reduced their
Yeah.
travel 3,000 and moved it
So
to
net
that. So
increase
all
of
they
2,000.
increased it was
They're asking for
2,000.
2,000, and they had 3,000 for travel, and if it was there, I'd ask to cut it separately, unless it's required.
Yeah, my same thing. If it's not required, like Mr. Poe explained to us, he's required by law. And again, I'm all about knowledge and advancement and keeping everybody's toolbox full of new tools. But if it's not absolutely necessary, I believe it should be stricken from this year's budget. From all across the board, but I don't know those details.
Or do
That's
Zoom or
why.
online and stay at the house.
I'm sorry.
I said, or do it Zoom or online and stay at the house. Saves a
Yeah, I
lot.
think that Miss Jessie said they're doing a lot online too, but there's things,
We
I know in
prefer
Ag
that.
Extension, they have to
too.
go to Nashville. There's things that, Mr. Poe, he's required by law to go to
Yeah.
Nashville, and I'm sure there's others. If those aren't there, I'd say take them out of the budget, but I don't have a number for that. That's where I would count on these other department heads that know that it's not required to come back and offer that up. I don't think it's right for any of us to sit here and just throw a number out on that, and we can do that, but they're gonna come back and say, hey, I need 2,000 because it's state mandated.
Some of it might be related to their UT extension. I bet some of that training, some of it's 4-H stuff, but I don't.
Yeah.
That's just a guess. I don't know whether it needs to be that much, but I'm pretty sure it needs to.
I can call, but that doesn't, as being a part of the Ag Committee members, but I can't make that call tonight and get us to the finish line. I'll definitely make the call and ask to offer up.
Mr.
Well-
Ronnie.
What percentage from each department, with the exception of EMS, would it take to get us where we need to be, including nonprofits?
I do not have those figures in front of me. Each department, that's really hard. Some did not increase whatsoever. It's strictly a cost of living increase in departments. So if we were to ask those departments to reduce, I see that kind of an unfair advantage in their part.
John,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm
Go
gonna,
ahead,
I'm
Mr.
gonna go
Snodgrass.
back to tourism. I forgot what page that was on. Did anyone mark that?
26.
26. So you got a 20,000 increase in advertising, 20,000 increase in communications, 19,000 increase in contracts with private agencies. Which each one of those is, well, the first two is about a 40% increase. 20,000, didn't we just vote something down for a 20,000 investment on some AI technology?
Correct.
So I'll make a motion to cut those, to keep same as last year's budget for the two 40,000 line items. I don't know.
Are you taking those specific line items out? Or are you taking
Yes.
are you going back to last year's budget?
Go back
Because
to
you-
last year's budget.
Because if you do, then it takes out the COLA.
We also have grants that are budgeted this year that's offset with revenue on the 24-25 column.
Okay, I'm just talking about line item 302 and 307.
Okay, that would offset your hotel motel revenue at the top. So if I decrease this expenditure, I would just decrease hotel motel revenue at the top. and the funds that we bring in excess that's budgeted just goes straight to a reserve that is only to be used for this tourism department or an economic development.
Okay.
I just wanted to, it will not reflect your fund balance at all on this.
Okay, so your motion is, Mr. Snodgrass, to cut
I guess.
307 and 302, or what is your motion?
I still find that strange, but I guess that's the law, right?
Yeah, we have,
This department can just spend freely without any accountability.
I don't know if they can spend freely without accountability. We've got accountability. What I'm saying is that this does not affect your property tax rate. You can fund them, you can decrease them, you can increase them, but it still does not
Oh, I
affect your.
withdraw it. It's no. it's
It
no
doesn't
at this
benefit you
point.
on any tax rate.
I
Mr.
withdraw
Solomon.
my motion.
Okay.
Jessica, I guess I'm gonna put this the right way. Where do you think we could cut at to get the budget balanced? You're more experienced in financial stuff. Can you recommend something to us? Because we're just sitting here spinning our wheels and we're not getting nothing done. And it's already going on 8:30 and we've been here 2 hours. I think we need to do something. If you could help us out, show us the directions, because everybody's wanting to cut this, cut that, and we come up, we ask you, just like you wanted to cut that, can't cut it. I mean, what do you recommend for us to cut? Can you do that?
I could, but other than salary lines, I may not look mean, but when we have our budget meetings, I can be kind of mean. So I really don't know of any fluff in a particular budget. I do not micromanage other department heads, so I take their word for them. If they tell me, most of them provide a quote that says it's increasing, and I put that with their budget. Bryant has a folder full of those. So we really don't have any additional items in here. The only thing that we do 100% have control of, which I'm not leaning you all in any direction, is nonprofits. I mean, that is one thing that we have 100% control of. I'm not recommending reducing those or increasing those at this point, but that is something that we can, it's not a salary line.
And I don't want you to micromanage. I mean, I don't want nobody to think that I'm trying to micromanage. Every county person that has a office, that holds an office, they do a good job. I ain't got nothing against them or nothing. But we got to do something. I mean, either raise property tax, and I'm not for raising property tax. I know we're gonna have to do it eventually, but I am against raising property tax. There's somewhere in this budget that we can cut. Somewhere, but where, I do not know.
I really think that question might be better for maybe the department heads. I did send out this proposed budget to all department heads and told them, it would probably be advised that they were here if there were any questions towards that. So I can only answer the best I can on their departments, but I'm not in it daily. And I can't recognize the needs versus the wants on some of them.
So if they go back, somebody, I can't, go back to nonprofits and make another motion, that's gonna cut it down a lot too, correct?
I think Mr. Scarlett made a motion at one point, which would reduce it $270,000, and had mentioned that we could revisit this. I do want to caution, I think we've said that on a couple of items, so that we would revisit it, and so that will hit fund balance next fiscal year. That's the only thing that I'm aware of. In our general fund, all of it, like I said, I would love to give credit to all the department heads. They are really, really good at minimizing costs. And Mr. Snodgrass did see that statement of expenditures today. So I have actually closed all purchase orders, so hopefully that will reduce the spending for this last half of this month and next month, unless it is an entire emergency. I understand that. They may have an emergency for purchase orders, so most of them do respect that, and do not try to just spend because they may have $50 left in office supplies.
Thank you.
Mr. Snodgrass.
One more question. With the wage increase and all the related costs to that, what was that number again?
493 and change.
493?
Yeah, that was
Yes.
the 3.2%.
And
That does include E911, which I had left out prior to that.
And then medical increase was how much?
5%.
Dollar?
155.
155. So we got $500,000 in wages and medical benefits increase. I'm sorry. How much was that again? 600,000?
Medical's 155,000, which is
155.
the 5% increase.
Wages were
493.
493. So
She did have a chart that would show us based on what percentage of raise we gave. You know, of course, that's a consideration. I don't want to do away with it because I know everybody's struggling to make it right now. The cost of living has gone up horribly. But we could
Yeah.
look at not giving as big a,
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just trying to walk into a number that we're beyond covering and with any cuts.
A 1% is 155, a 2% is approximately 308.
savings.
No, that's what it costs.
Okay.
So every 1%, figure it for, it's not an exact figure, but figure every 1% of that ends up being around 155 with associated costs.
And I have the percentages right here as a cheat sheet if you have any specific questions.
Yeah, you gave us one. I didn't bring it. Do you have it on the computer? Can you pull it up?
Well, it doesn't change. It's 155 and per percentage in general. October. Be the second Monday. Is the work session October? That's right. Do we meet in October?
Yeah, there's a is it Columbus Day?
Well, maybe it's a Tuesday, but second week, and then the third week's the vote meeting, October.
It'll be October 15th already.
Yeah. But Miss Jessie will not have the number until approximately October because they have to close everything out. And again, last year we rolled 245.
October 15th work session.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the committee? Yes, sir.
So I think we can all conclude we're not going to cut $2 million out tonight. Everybody? So there's only one path to take. So would that motion be in the form of preparing a tax increase to cover that?
Correct.
And then we have these other special call meetings, and if that hospital money can get approved, we got everything covered, right?
If that were to take place and the commission was to choose to do that, they can amend, they can change, they can throw our entire budget away. It's totally up to the commission. What we do here is totally a recommendation.
To me-
Has no binding.
Right. But we're trying to meet the 30th deadline. And if we don't have 2 million to remove, then we got to go forward with the tax increase calculations. Until we can have the chance of avoiding that with the special call meetings.
Correct.
All right. I'll step forward and make that motion.
Mr. Snodgrass, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Norton? Is there discussion? Is there any question? If you vote for this, then you're locking in the budget, and Ms. Jessie will move forward with publishing the budget with the tax increase as the revenue stream to cover the $2 million.
With the opportunity to change it if the 2 million goes through.
That's totally up to the commission. That's not up to us.
I understand that, but I said opportunity. I didn't say it was gonna happen for sure.
And it may or may not be, well, it will not be 15 cents, but it will be $2 million that Miss Jessie will figure once Miss Susan comes in with the rate, and she'll apply those pennies. They will be published in the budget. When she publishes it, will be sent to the comptroller. So it will not be 15 cents. So don't anybody get hung up on that. But it will be $2 million of revenue. All right, any other questions? Everybody understand what we're voting on? All right, Miss Jessie, call the roll.
So with the 15 pennies, if we were to do 15 pennies,
$2 million.
and it's using fund balance of $115,036 still to balance it. Okay, so we'll vote on the 15 pennies if the 2 million hospital does not, is that what we're voting on?
Let's vote on the $2 million of revenue, not 15 pennies. Because the penny will change, the amount of pennies will change. So let's just vote on the money.
2 million of revenue in property tax,
Correct.
and we can't do a half penny, so it would
It has to
round
be an even penny or over.
up. Okay, I'm on the same page now, thank you. Commissioner Scarlett,
No.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Snodgrass,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon,
No.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes. Well, yeah, I abstain.
You can vote on it as a total budget. You just can't vote on specific on the department, so you can vote on
is that a
total.
yes? Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Coleman,
No,
Commissioner Walker,
No.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Okay, that's 4-4. Fells.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
So if we sit here and cut out $2 million, just start scratching off lines, there's no need to have a special call meeting, correct? Because we're gonna get it right here.
Correct.
We don't have to worry about transferring that hospital money.
That's correct.
But we can't touch anything except nonprofits, and there's only $270,000 there.
Now, that's not right, Ms.
Well,
Norton.
you show me where, because I've been told no on everything that I've asked about.
You can touch anything
You can touch-
non-salary, or you can adjust the salary portion of it with the cost of living.
I
And
make a
don't
motion,
work
we
in these
cut 3%
departments.
across the board.
Mr. Solomon makes a motion, 3%. Is there a second? Is there a second?
question.
Hold on.
You gotta have a second
Mr.
before you can discuss it.
Yeah, we gotta have a second before we can take questions or
You
anything.
can't vote on it till you understand it.
That's my take.
Yeah.
What's 3% gonna put you at?
It's about $1 million.
Pardon?
3%'s about $1 million.
Hold on, do what?
3% is about 1 million.
That's 3% of
Okay,
what?
is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Ronnie seconds. All right, now discussion.
3% of what? Everything on here except what you can't touch. So what, do you know what you're
Everything.
cutting?
No.
You can touch. I don't know where you keep getting at, Ms. Norton, but we can recommend you can do whatever you want to. The only things we cannot do is we cannot change maintenance of effort or drop below that in any department has. The libraries, the sheriff's department, election commission, the road department on a rolling 5-year average, the schools. But as far as what we're talking about in 101, anything that's not maintenance of effort, you can touch.
So
Mr. Snodgrass.
in this one department budget, their total requested for 24-25 is 304,713. 3% of that would be 9141. Well, the total increase over 23-24 was 13,187. They can't get enough out of that due to the other salary cost increase. They can't get 3%. Is that lining up? They can't get it.
Well, now, the way I understand Mr. Solomon's motion is 3% straight across the board. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so 3% would include everything in the budget.
I mean, that means cutting their salary too.
That would be left up to Jessica to do that.
So that means she could probably, out of this particular example, she might get 2%. That basically wipes out all the increases below the salary and the insurance and so forth. And maybe this one gets 2, but she has to go over here and get 5 in order to get that 3% across the board. Is that?
That's how I understand it. So let's use the finance department, for example. Our non-salary lines.
Which page?
Total 7,925, page 7. 7,925. I can reduce that. I have plugged in 3,000 to offset that. All but about maybe 1,000, if that, is reimbursed by the school. So I will be reducing what the schools would be reimbursing us at that point. So I could probably find about $1,000.
So I said you can't do it.
Within our non-salary.
Sorry, but you
We do
just
have
can't
some
do it.
budgets that are much larger than some departments. I'm not sure, some of our larger budgets, we may be able to find chunkier, more meat than that.
Not now.
But I would definitely have to reach out to those department heads and just ask if they can still provide the same services or needs.
Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Snodgrass.
So what that puts her doing is picking and choosing from which budget you take it from, right? Which makes you a whole lot of new friends.
Well, we can reduce ours by 1,000, but it's going to take a long day to get to 1,000,000 when you start with 1,000. So
Yeah.
I would look for the larger items to get there.
Any other discussion or questions? Mr. Poe?
Yeah,
If you would, hang up. You gotta come up.
Okay, can I come up?
Yes, come up, please. Microphone.
So if you're talking about individual departments, again, I'd love to introduce myself and reiterate anything that we spoke about earlier. But I'll give you a number. 3% of my budget is $29,470. My non-salary line items is $25,000. So I'd have no paper, no postage. I have no, again, mandatory court system. You'd be hearing from people that you do not want to hear if I was forced to cut 3%. And that would go through Mr. Green. Absolutely, not on my behalf, but because they're mandatory. So if you cut 3% across the board, I don't have it. It's $29,470.
Any other discussion or questions on the motion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Let me call the roll call. Go ahead.
Chairman Scarlett?
No.
Commissioner Norton?
No.
Commissioner Snodgrass?
No.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
No.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
No.
Commissioner Reed?
No.
2 to 6 fails.
Motion fails. What's the pleasure of the committee? It's on the total budget.
You're fine. It's everybody, though, when it's everybody, you're cool.
What's the pleasure of the committee? We're $2 million off.
We can't bring up the motion that just failed, not that one, but the one that I made, to prepare the budget for the $2 million gap. I mean, in reality, it's a bit of a technical move. I think we all know what we, I don't want to speak incorrectly or illegally here, but we know that's a logical decision to do what we try to do with the hospital fund, to close this gap in certain perspectives. How about that?
Just gotta be careful how you state that.
We're gonna be here until the next meeting if we don't do something.
But 3% still, which is, thank you for stepping up, Sammy, it still puts us $1 million short.
Yeah.
And then you got your other nonprofits too. I mean, there's a, how much was it that was cut?
$270,000.
Well, it's down to, the ambulances are out, so we got that Mr. Phillips put on the table. Next is, how much is the sheriff's capital worth?
200,000.
200,000. And then you're asking 220, how much, 226, how are the profits, non-profit, or the fire
270, I
department?
270, all the increases.
Yeah.
I mean, we're basically taking money and giving it away to nonprofits, and Mr. Poe, we're asking him to give up $1,050. There's something wrong with that picture. And I understand that one thing does good works, but they have $1,250,000 budget. That nonprofit does, and they're coming in and asking us for $10,000, and we're asking Mr. Poe to give up $1,050 out of his budget. And then we're turning around and giving it away.
Which nonprofit are you saying has $1,250,000?
Safe Harbor.
Can we let her come speak about it?
All right now.
Let her.
We're not doing anything on it. If we're gonna do something on it, we'll do it.
I'd like to know what she has to say.
Microphone.
Yes, we do have a $1,250,000 budget. We have 13 employees. We have 2 locations. We have to travel back and forth. We have meetings in Jeff County and are providing services in Jeff County weekly. So most of our budget is salary, and our staff are also paid way under market value as well.
Who are you with? I know you're with Safe Harbor, but what's your title there?
I'm the executive director.
What's your, never mind, I'm going to say that, never mind, go
The
ahead.
majority of the employees are counselors, is that right?
Master's level therapist. We have master's level forensic interviewers. We have advocates that do assessments, that work with the families, crisis intervention, suicide assessments. So we worked with almost 1,000 kids last year. And that was, like was mentioned earlier, those services are written in Tennessee statute that we have to provide them. So if we don't provide them, that means that child that has been sexually abused, their case can't go to court with that video evidence of their testimony. It means putting a 4-year-old up on the witness stand to testify about what's happened to them. So it's in statute that to allow the video to come in, it has to be conducted at a child advocacy center. And so the state requires us to do that, but yet we don't get an ample amount of funding to be able to cover the cost of those salaries. So it's like $35,000 for one forensic interviewer. We have 2 forensic interviewers, soon to be 3 forensic interviewers, but we're only getting $35,000 to cover those services. And so we come to the counties, we cover the whole 4th Judicial District and ask them to help support our services. And so this is the first time, at least since I've been at Safe Harbor, that we've asked Jefferson County for funds. So the other counties are supporting to some extent. Any other questions?
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the committee? What's the
I'll offer a
pleasure?
motion to cut, safe space back to $4,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Snodgrass, Mr. Solomon. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
2 opposed. Ms. Norton, Ms. Douglas. Motion passes. Cut back to 4,000.
I make a motion to cut Jefferson County Auxiliary Radio Emergency Service back to $2,500.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Solomon makes the motion, Mr. Snodgrass seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Reed opposed, 1 opposed, motion passes.
I make a motion to cut $10,000 from Safe Harbor Child Advocacy Center. That's hard to say.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Have we heard from the Jefferson County Rescue Squad?
Yes,
This
ma'am,
is the
we've heard from all
volunteer,
of them.
right? This is the volunteer. It's not.
Yes, the rescue squad is volunteer 100%.
I'm wondering what their budget is and what they need the 29 for, and
Is he running out of tape?
I think it had a time limit. You guys can repeat everything that happened in past hour? I'm just kidding.
Oh, you gotta be kidding. Surely you don't want to
We're
read
good.
that.
Let's proceed forward.
Okay.
He's, no, I can't, I gotta be quiet.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
I mean, personally, I've shared this with a couple folks in this room. I struggle with putting on the table to reduce safe harbor or safe space and keep all the money in for the care facility. All right, I know we're all sensitive to our pets and animals and so forth, but I certainly put a lot higher value on human life than animals. So I'll put a motion on the table to reduce that from 130 down to 110.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there anybody here that wants to speak to that? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Myself, Mr. Ronnie opposed. Motion passes. What's the pleasure of the
130 down to
committee?
110.
What's the pleasure of the committee? Or 1,900,000 plus.
So everything past nonprofits is passed, right? It's done. I'm
Well,
looking
it's-
at on these papers here.
Yes,
Move
we've,
that chunk to the side.
unless you want to go back and change anything in them.
Chairman Scarlett, I'm at 2.1.
2.1, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
2.1. Just trying to keep up. What's the pleasure of the committee? We've got to give Miss Jessie a budget.
If we touch the fire departments, what was your proposal now? It was 226,000. That's still, how many, based on what is known, how many pennies is that worth, Jesse? Miss Jessie?
1.5.
1.5. I mean, it just doesn't, I think that's a downhill slide. All communities will suffer with that. It's why, it's, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's a penny and a half, and I appreciate everybody, and I still want us, all department heads that haven't, or try to dig out that other penny or two, please, feel free to go ahead with that in the meantime, but when we're putting this tax increase is inevitable on the table. There's not $2 million to cut out of this, because you're gonna start cutting into costs that can't be avoided to get to that at this point, based on what I understand. So another penny and a half, why keep sticking around on that? Let's move forward. Put it on the table for her to prepare the budget with what is known, and then hopefully we can move forward with this hospital fund reallocation and knock it all out. Right, in the gray zone there.
Pretty much summed it up.
Alright. So can I make that same motion again? Or or some version of that.
You can make another version of that motion, you sure can.
I will make that motion again that I made a minute ago.
And it'll now be less money.
Just a little less.
Is that for the 226,000?
No, this is to carry the two, she's down to 2.1, which the same motion is to, with these, it's basically the same motion, and then balance the 2 million with the fund balance. It's a few dollars different than the previous motion.
How much difference is there between the previous amount? What were, $50,000?
Yeah, I'm not really sure where we were.
Prior to that,
About
we're at
somewhere around
$2,176,569.
$50,000.
That's my motion, again.
Is there a second? Mr. Douglas?
Can you repeat that motion for us? Can you repeat that motion for us?
To cover the budget shortfall with a tax increase, whatever that figure, the 2 point, whatever figure that is.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Snodgrass?
That's correct.
Is that what you understood you said?
With the idea that we're going to go for that 2 million.
All right.
Chairman Scarlett?
No.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Snodgrass?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
No.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
No.
Commissioner Walker?
No.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Fails 4-4.
Motion fails.
All roads
Let's recess for 5 minutes and then we'll reconvene.
Don't want to be on record, but yeah, that's exactly. I got
Are you talking about Mr. Bowden? You talking about Mr.
Now it's on pause.
Well, it's gonna hurt the volunteers, but not the city paid fire departments. They get paid by the city. These that get paid by the city, it hurts them.
I started thinking.
Long enough, haven't we all? Yes, sir, my phone died and my What are you doing? Actually, I was
That's what I call it.
Oh, yes,
What's the pleasure of the committee? Mr. Douglas?
I had a question from the lady from Safe Harbor, then I have a motion.
Okay.
Can you give us an idea of what the surrounding agencies are doing?
The other governments, yes. Sevier County is by far the largest, and we get 55,000 from them a year. We've applied for 10,000 from Gatlinburg. Previously, I believe we got 8,500. 18,000, I believe, from Pigeon Forge, and 25, I think, from City of Sevierville. And then Cotton County and Newport, one gives 2,500 and one gives like 1,000.
Okay.
And the 60, I think it's like 16 to 22% are Jeff County clients. So it makes sense that Sevier County gives much larger scale.
You said Cock County 25 and
2,500, I believe, and then Newport, I think, is 1,000.
I could never not give, I mean, just wipe it all out, but I'll make a motion, we drop it down to 5,000.
Second.
Mr. Douglas makes a motion, drop it to 5,000. Mr. Solomon second. Question, have you asked any of the cities in Jefferson County?
No, this was the first starting point, but I will.
And what other counties does the 4th Judicial District cover?
Granger County, and we have made a request to Granger County, but I've not gotten an answer back on that. They didn't ask us to come
Granger,
present.
Clark, Sevier, and Hamlin.
Hamlin?
I think Hamlin's in the 4th, yeah.
Is Hamlin in the 4th District?
Third.
3rd, okay.
So
All right. Motion is to cut 5,000. Is there any questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote.
Chairman Scarlett,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
No.
Commissioner Snodgrass,
No.
Commissioner Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
No.
Motion passes. What's the pleasure of the committee?
I want to put the early one from moving the sheriff's car into the Capitol that you had. Make a motion for that one. Standalone, by itself.
Mr. Snodgrass moves to move the sheriff's cars. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Norton,
How much money is that?
200,000. Would you include tell me again what it is, Ms. Jessie?
The TRAN, Tax Revenue Anticipation Note, to cover cash flow, since Capital Fund 171 is the only source of revenue is property tax, and those will not be collected until the spring.
In case the cars are delivered in the first part of the year rather than.
We wouldn't utilize it unless the cars were available. More than likely, I'm not sure if the sheriff is still here, but more than likely the cars might not be available until the spring, but if they were, that would help with the cash flow. It would be from the debt service.
So you're saying postpone it till spring?
No,
I did it on Fund 116 that we approved. And I'm not sure what page your Fund 116 is on.
if the cars were to come in December or become available, and they're obligated to take them and do it, we would need some way to pay for it, or need something to cover the PO. If the cars don't come available until spring or whatever, then by February, the tax would have been collected, it's in that fund, everything. It's just a precautionary deal.
You can see it on page 30, where we did it on sanitation fund 116. You can see on the revenue side, it's transfers in from fund 151, and I called it an interfund loan, but it's a trans. It shows $500,000 on proposed revenue, 116,49800. It's at the very top. And then at the very bottom, it offsets it, paying it back, 116,99100, 590.
On page 30?
Is it page 30?
Mine says sanitation.
31.
31,
Sorry.
all right, I'm on the right page now.
30 is the revenue, 31, the very bottom line is where it shows that it's being paid back.
Okay.
So that's how that would work. It would be a zero net effect because you've offset the revenue and the expenditures. And then on debt service 151, it shows the exact same thing, revenue and expenditure. It would only be utilized. This one is only utilized. We watch the cash on this fund very closely. It's only utilized if we see the need.
So what was your recommendation?
The interfund, if you will entertain it for you and who seconded that, Ms. Norton, if you all will entertain it, to add that to the motion of that, the 200,000, move them to capital, and add the tax anticipation note to that in case the cars were to become available, so we can cover the PO.
Okay.
Does not affect our tax rate in any, it's just a precautionary thing in case they come in early.
Yep, I'm good with that.
We don't, it's just like the ambulance that Mr. Brad had, they don't anticipate that they will come in probably for almost a year. All right, does everybody understand what we're voting on? We're taking this out of the budget, $200,000. All right, Ms. Jessie?
Chairman Scarlett?
Yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Snodgrass?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes. $1.8 and change. 1.8 and change. Mr. Walker.
I make a motion, we take the 30% increase from the fire departments and the rescue squad and put it back on in October when we get rollover.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Walker makes a motion. Mr. Coleman seconds the motion. That's approximately $255,000. Fire departments and the rescue squad.
And we'll be putting it back in with the rollover.
Yeah, our first meeting after rollover.
You're asking it be put on for review then? Okay.
But, no, was the question done? Not yet.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So they would operate without those funds July, August, September, and October. They wouldn't become available probably until November, right? The meeting's gonna be mid-October.
Mid-October, yes.
Yeah. And best case, the following week, she would release the funds. Or are those the next quarterly installment?
Ms. Jessie pays nonprofits quarterly. There have been some nonprofits that have special needs that have requested a little different payment schedule, I think. Maybe you can expand on that.
One volunteer fire department has a truck payment due, so we issue two payments, two quarterly payments at once, and then they wait their turn. We do have to spread it out, just cash flow, so not everybody gets issued July, October, January. We spread it out, so.
So that means you don't issue out payments like at the third month of each quarter?
No, so each one is on their own, I guess, so call it, for lack of a better term, payment schedule, and they submit an invoice. That way, we're not paying every single person in July,
But
or every
everybody
single
up
person in October.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. Everybody up to this point would be without funds, right?
No, just a 30% increase.
Until there were a meeting in
No.
October?
No, they get the base
Oh,
amount.
okay, won't be getting the increase.
What his motion was to take the increase.
I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Any other questions about Mr. Walker's motion?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Fire department and rescue squad. I think it's approximately 255,000.
It's $255,727.
All right, any other questions on Mr. Walker's motion? Ms. Jessie?
Chairman Scarlett,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Snodgrass,
No.
Commissioner Solomon,
Abstain with cause.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes. 1.4 and change, or 1.5 for round figures. No, I'm sorry, 1.6. Is that about right? It's fine. We've not been in O'Hare since up till now, so there's no need to get decided.
1.7.
1.7. You wish to make your motion again?
I will, for the third time tonight, make that motion.
Mr. Snodgrass makes a motion. Is there a second to close the gap?
I'll
Yes.
second again.
Mr. Douglas seconds it.
As long as I get to vote, I'm good.
It's to close the gap of approximately $1.7 million with a tax increase.
Correct.
Is that,
And that's provided the hospital monies are not available, correct?
this is just a recommendation that goes to the full commission. Full commission may change it anytime, in any way.
So what would the property tax be?
1.7 million. Generates what, Ms. Jessie?
A little more than 1.6.
And the remainder is made up with fund balance.
Around 47,000.
Okay.
Chairman Scarlett?
In the interest of getting this thing done, and since everybody's got a magical thing they're gonna solve this with, yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Snodgrass?
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon?
No.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
No.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Passes.
We go on now.
Adjourn.
Is there a second? Ms. Norton, seconds it, Mr. Solomon.